Are we the last generation to own things?
What happens when you lose an income unexpectedly? Like, it all just turns off and your house gets emptied.
But also it moves the decision for the consumer from being proactive to reactive.
That's where the smoking comparison is most appropriate. The tobacco companies didn't get sued for killing people. They got sued because they knew they were killing people.
Put it together in like a debtor's idea cloud with no conclusion.
It's a bit like people that don't drink tea in the UK. You meet one of them and you're like, no, absolutely not.
I feel like this is only acceptable if the big client is the council manager for a local pond that has a peddlable swans exhibit thing.
I don't think there's ever been a life-changing deal in Stevenage, Sam.
Yes, exactly. You'll never see a more knackered pair of leather shoes than on a billionaire.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Last of the Line. We have liftoff. It's the 2nd of April. The clocks have changed. The evenings are stretching out. And for the first time this year, and certainly this evening, it felt like you might not need a coat every time you leave the house. So this week, we're talking about something slightly different. Not what's disappearing, but what's quietly changing. The way we buy things, the way we use them, and whether we actually own anything anymore. Because more and more, it feels like we're not buying products, we're buying access. Subscriptions, licenses, memberships, things that can appear and disappear overnight. So tonight we're asking whether we might be the last generation to properly own things. And if we are, is that actually a problem? Either way, welcome back to the Last of the Line. So that first question is, are we the last generation to own things? Now, we've skirted around this topic on other podcasts, but we thought this could be where we give the definitive view. And I'll come back and talk a little bit more about it. But why don't we start with you, Simon Dedman?
I mean, obviously it's a bit overgeneralized, right? And it feels quite categorical as well. Like, so we're talking about media predominantly here, right? In your guys' prep thing, you talked about music and movies. Even within those, the more I thought about it, the more I felt that there's kind of a distinction. Like, we all mostly, whatever, had DVD collections because that was the thing. And then as we've gone to Netflix and streaming, etc., those have largely been eschewed, as has music. But I'd argue those are quite different consumption types, insofar as I've got a ton of old DVDs and stuff from my collection that I probably only watched once anyway. Some stuff you're going to want to come back to because it's legit brilliant. Master and Commander or something. Or there's classics. Master and Commander, whatever.
All of the classics. That Oscar-winning classic, Master and Commander.
The reason it pops into my head is because my parents had it on Blu-ray or a good quality DVD from the get-go, and we watched it in full sound in the living room, and it was fabulous. And so we've watched Master and Commander from their limited DVD collection loads of times. So for me, that's one of the DVD classics because we've seen it 12 times on DVD because we have it on DVD. But there's other stuff.
Well, just wait. You're not moving on from that quickly, right? Just for clarity, the only reason they had Master and Commander on DVD or Blu-ray is because it was probably in a bargain bin or a bucket, or it got bundled with something because they literally could not give it away.
Master and Commander is a very good movie, and it's like cracking sound, looks brilliant. It's brilliant. You're a fool. Anyway, also, how are you going to cut in against your own rules and press the put your hand up button and then delegate you get to interrupt me by putting your own hand up? Bonkers. Anyway, so DVDs, loads of them. If we're being honest with ourselves, you bought it on DVD because you couldn't get it any other way. But do you want to own a little box with something that gives you the option to watch Euro Trip at any time you like? No, you're probably never going to see it again. And so having that available on a shared library somewhere that someone else owns, broadly probably okay, as long as you still do have the option to keep it yourself somehow. So that for me feels like a bit of a mixed bag. Music, and this is where I'm sort of coming down to the general principle of this concept, is I think this is very much still your own choice. All of this is still your own choice. Like, if you're being too lazy to make a choice on whether or not you own your own stuff, that is a choice in itself. Like, I've carried on owning my own music. I buy all my stuff on MP3. I manage my own collection. it's a bit more work. Sure. It's a bit more of a drag. Sure. But it means that when I'm up in Yosemite where there's no signal, I've got every single piece of music I've ever bought on my phone with me at all times, and all the music, all the photos I've ever taken with me at all times. That takes more effort because people like Apple have deliberately tried to get away from making that possible so that you buy subscription services, but you can work around it. And things like NAS as well, like we're talking about subscription for this is media, owning your own data, hosting your own data. You guys take the piss out of me for my constant, like how great the NAS is. I spent $200 on that thing, 200 quid on that thing 10 years ago, and it's been hosting a ton of work projects, all my music, movies, photos, everything around the world, anytime I want it, anywhere. Fabulous. No running costs, but a bit more setup costs. But if you're prepared to pay John Q Google $20 or 20 quid a month or whatever it is for your hosting service, paying some nerd down the road, some tech savvy kid to set up your NAS once pays off in the long run pretty quickly, in my opinion.
But do you also pay for subscription services on top of the NAS? Or do you have Spotify and Netflix and Amazon and all that stuff?
I don't have Spotify, very deliberately because of how little they pay the artists. So like I'm not on principle. So for me, it's a combo of principle and effort. If you're principled and you're prepared to make the effort, often you find that you've sacrificed a load of benefits for some efficiency trade-offs. But then for things, like I say, where I think movies and especially TV are more immediate once-off consumption style things in the way that you would necessarily subscribe to, well, food would be something that is more analogous for a subscription model. You're going to eat every day and you're not going to come back to the same meal once you've eaten it. So like having the availability of the latest TV series is great, but I won't be, even though I've got the In-Betweeners DVDs, realistically, am I ever going to watch that series again? Was it great? Yeah. Will I watch it again? Probably not. So yeah, mixed bag of thoughts on this one. I feel like the idea that we're going to end up in one place where everyone owns nothing is up to them. If you want to just let your world go that way, I think you can. But I think if you stand up against it, there's lots of benefits to hosting your own stuff. But maybe you don't need to host everything.
In some corporate speak, could you just circle back to that bit about the In-Betweeners? I really lost the train of thought there, where you felt like you were building to a point and then you went somewhere over here.
TV, well, as in, yeah, sorry, I my notes aren't as well prepared on this one as I wanted, and I thought, well, I'll probably be fine. I'll wing it, and clearly it's getting in the butt. So more prep in future. The In-Betweeners was just like TV, even more than movies. You'll come back to your greats, your masters and commanders, but for TV, even more so, it's a bit more disposable, right? So I think I think TV lends itself more to subscription. Movies, mostly subscription service with a little bit of purchase if you really think you'll watch it again and again. Music, purchase and own. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you
your own data hosting, purchase and own?
No, I get it. Where are you purchasing music from then these days? I have genuine interest. Where do you go?
Yeah, that's a problem for electronic music. Beatport and Bandcamp, you're great.
Yeah.
For Bandcamp's good for lots of stuff in general. But if you want to purchase like a big pop hit, it's often a drag. Like I bought an Billie Eilish song, Bad Guy. I heard it on the TV show. I was like, that's great. I'll get that.
Great
It's not
tune.
new, apparently. Yeah. It shows how out of touch I am. It's 10 years old, probably. But you pretty much have to get them through Amazon Music or things like that. And sometimes it's really difficult. Like the music industry, as much as it is like treated terribly, and musicians are treated terribly, like historically, music industry doesn't do itself any favors by looking out for itself. Like it really isn't necessarily that easy to just go out and get an MP3 of a song you like Spotify and stuff make it that much easier. That I do have sympathy for folks who are like, well, Spotify just works, and if you want a playlist, it's just there and whatever. It has facilitated listening and sharing, but sadly with the downside of don't own your own shit, you can't play it offline, and they're not paying the artists anything, so it's contributing to the death of the industry.
So we'll come back to the don't own your own shit point in a bit, but I think you're right on the. It's not obvious where you would go to buy something. I can't think of somewhere off the top of my head that I would go to buy a modern pop song, right, on the internet. So you're right, for generally electronic dance music, Beatport's good, right? It's stuff's on there, right? You can just buy it, and you kind of need it if you're going to go out and DJ. So we've been explaining this to Daniel, because he's been using like Record Box for DJing and stuff, and we're explaining like you can use Spotify with it, but it's hard to then actually have some of the you need stuff, actual copy of it to make it work. So he plays around with things, and then he's like, I'm gonna have to buy that. Well, yeah, you're gonna have to buy the song. So, but you're right, there's no obvious, is there? I don't know if John and AJ, if anything comes to mind, but yeah, if I wanted to go and buy a song, other than now going back to HMV and buying the CD.
HMV, man. You can't buy very many CDs. In our local HMV on Milsom Street in Bath, half the shop is vinyl.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
Like the CD section is like maybe 10% of that. And I've been sucked into that recently, and now I am beginning to collect vinyl because I miss the physical medium, owning the disc, putting the needle on the vinyl, and listening to a whole album. I think it's a sort of a different experience than just chucking whatever on a Spotify playlist that you've heard a million times before. So I'm quite pumped about this. But I had a question for you. How much do you think that Gen Z on average is spending per month on subscriptions?
Well, I saw something.
Subscriptions? Sorry, go on. Okay.
There was something this week. I can't remember which subscriptions it related to and whether it was Gen Z. They say the average household spends 72 quid a month, but I don't quite sure what that covers.
Yeah. I've got a stat here that says Gen Z is spending 300 quid a month on subscriptions. I don't even know how that's possible, so we'd have to check. We'd have to check that.
Does that include like?
I know.
That must include like gym, right?
Well, it might, right? I haven't got that. I'm not going to look up the source now, but like it could include, gym. It could include like rental car, leasing a car, for example. So,
I see. Okay.
Generation. That's where this question was going, right? We've talked about music and films to start with, but what about owning a house or renting it or a car or I don't know, like paying regularly into a holiday fund rather than just buying it or whatever. There's two things I really worry about with this. One is that if you're paying just basically a monthly life subscription to include everything you possibly use, holiday, car, food, furniture, knives and forks, pens, I don't know, like all these things, what happens when you lose an income unexpectedly?
Right.
Like it all just turns off and your house gets emptied. It's really worrying if that was like the sort of future dystopia we're talking about. But it wouldn't get to that level, I'm sure. But definitely, like if you don't own anything, then things can be taken away from you really, really easily. And the other thing I really worry about with it is that if you don't own it, somebody owns it, and it's likely to be the billionaires or the big funds, or BlackRock will own a bunch of is famously taking over a bunch of American housing at the moment. And so if we're constantly renting stuff or paying for a subscription, it's going somewhere and it's pushing money towards those very small number of people who own an awful lot of the world.
Right.
Whereas it should be perhaps, we should consider a bit, a bit more of a democratization of owning things to be a sort of more of an ideal, really.
The global elite.
Yeah.
Age.
Yeah, maybe,
I don't know if that's a symbol. Maybe that's an Illuminati thing. Is that maybe from the Manosphere? Don't they have a symbol? I missed that. AJ, what were you going to say?
Jim Carrey making that triangle and doing that as a sort of Illuminati symbol. I get that that's a bit conspiratorial, but it's a sort of natural conclusion to not owning anything, right? Somebody owns it, and it's gonna be concentrated in a very small part of society that owns everything and therefore controls everything and can take everything away from you if you don't keep up the monthly payment.
Yeah.
AJ.
What do you think, AJ?
Well, I think it depends on why you're doing it, right? So take houses, right? We just spoke, renting a house for longer. I think it depends on if you're doing it because you're doing it out of choice, or if you're doing it because you have to, right? At the moment, I would say in the UK, unfortunately, the majority of people are renting are doing because they can't afford to buy. However, if you go to Germany, where the majority of people rent, they do so because it's a better choice for them, right? So if you are approaching it like they do in Germany, where they know they are going to rent for life, and so in parallel to their cheap rents, they are investing in the stock market so that then they have a passive income, in retirement to continue paying the rent. If it's a lifestyle choice to choose to rent because you don't want the hassle, you want to be more flexible where you live, you want to be more mobile, you want to, this applies to me, for someone that's, only bought a house in the last year, renting let you live in a nicer place, right? I lived in far nicer places than I would be afford to buy. If you're doing it as a lifestyle choice, then it works. If you're doing it because you're forced into it, then you're in problems. I think if you go down to other things, take a car. Cars sort of make sense to me to move towards renting, and something that you don't use most of the time and is a depreciating asset. That feels like a sensible thing to rent to me. It's notable that how companies don't own their own vehicles; they lease them. I think that probably indicates something about. We shouldn't consider our lifestyles as how to most efficiently use the capital we have, but that is an argument. Getting back to media, I'm not a stuff person. I never had the collection of DVDs. I suppose I had CDs. Okay, I had a lot of CDs, but even then, right? So I removed house, found them had about 350 CDs. They probably all cost between 10 and 15 quid, but 30 years ago, right? That would have been, even if you say, without accounting for inflation, right? That's £5,000 worth of stuff. That's a lot of monthly, Spotify or Amazon Music subscriptions to get before it becomes monetarily worthwhile. And you get more. I get Apple Music with my bank account, but that gives me access to, pretty much every song that's ever been written. I know it doesn't, but give or take. Is that such a bad deal? I don't know. For me, I understand where you're coming from. I used to, John, with the vinyl and stuff, I used to collect it. Not collect it, that's probably not true. I used to enjoy having it, and I do like the feel of it. The flip side is, do I actually have any time to sit down and, when was the last time I wanted to sit down and sit there and look at a 12-inch record and go through the ceremony, the process of putting it on? In practice, it's the sound that I like, the sound's the bigger thing for me rather than the look and feel, I guess. And if that's the case, then paying the subscription works, right?
Yeah, I think for me on the vinyl point, I would absolutely keep the Spotify subscription. There's no way. I use it so much all day, every day, but I just wanted that something extra. I feel like something's missing from it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dennis, what do you think?
Well, one very small point, just on something you said, AJ, was you could get everything on Apple Music pretty much, and the pretty much thing is for me, there is a conversation to be had there in terms of you are, what's the word, delegating away the responsibility for managing the database to someone else, and if stuff isn't available, you just don't have it. So I've got some tracks that I know won't be available anywhere at all. Like that, if I lose them off my hard drive, I'm not getting them back from anyone ever, right? And so that, how big of a loss that'd be to my life, obviously relatively minor, right? But it's still a trade-off. It's still a choice you're making to be like, I choose to sacrifice the ability to have to ever listen to this again, if I go with the big providers, kind of thing.
I suppose fair point.
To John, one
Sam,
of the
what do you
things
think?
well, I was interested in, I know you dug out that quote by Klaus Schwab, which I'll just read. People, and as you pointed out, people say, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. But the full quote was, welcome to 2030, I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. So this sort of prediction of a possible future shaped by a sharing economy, not a plan. And I think you made, you reached an idea, are we drifting into that world without choosing it? I certainly think we're drifting into it. I'd certainly,
Yeah, without
I
a
think
doubt.
you're,
We've got friends who've made a lot of money out of this, out of
Right.
subscription as a service businesses. I mean, it is pervasive. Everything that you do, like look at Sony PlayStation now. The money just falls towards them like gravity from my kids' wallets because of how they've set the systems up. I'm not saying it's like some evil cabal doing this, but they've figured it out. We live in a really capitalist society, and that's great. But the downside of that is people are going to chase profit. And if that means, for example, Spotify charged me 22 quid a month for our family subscription. I listen to the same 200 songs over and over and over again. They're probably making loads of money out of me. Anyway, yeah, but the Klaus Schwab thing is interesting, isn't it? He didn't actually say it, although a lot of people say that he said it. But yeah, it's a sort of a worrying dystopia for me. I don't like the idea. I like to own things. I think it's important to have things. I'm a magpie in a way. I want to have shiny things.
It's interesting. Just running the numbers there. So that's around 264 quid a year, Hunty, for your Spotify subscription. I'd say I'm a pretty heavy music purchaser. I buy a load of MP3s throughout the year and a bunch of albums as I go along. And I'd say I'd probably spend about there or thereabouts, maybe less, every year on stuff that I buy. Obviously, I've got access to my existing 40,000 or whatever collection of stuff I've bought previously that I can hear for free, and then acquire 250 quid more stuff every year. But the difference being obviously that much more of that money goes to the artist. So it's kind of interesting to see that price is probably about the same, but it supports the industry a lot more, not that money going.
And that goes back to my point about if we don't own anything, there are a select few who do own a lot of the profits coming from these things.
Right.
And that's the system we live in, and that's fine. But I don't know if we need to support that in pushing the whole of society towards it. I sound like a right socialist. It's not.
I'm fully with you.
It's not normal for me.
I know this is usually my job here, and especially also then, do you fundamentally are you okay with where that money is going to those people? If these are benevolent billionaires, then maybe it's fine. But if Daniel Ek is using your Spotify money to send munitions to Israel, then maybe you're less happy about that. For example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it would need to be. Yeah, I'm not sure it would change my habits. I don't know if it changes because it's so opaque, right? You don't really know what happens to all of these subscription monies in any case. Right? It goes off to shareholders who might have, look, pension funds own an awful lot of varied investments, and like you might very well through a pension own a bit of a company that supplies arms.
Probably do.
Right? Yeah,
we do. But it is bits like you say, opaque, but not completely invisible, right? Like you can do your due diligence there. So there is that element of like effort and laziness kind of thing versus lazy is strong, but like it's easy to just go along with it, right? But it is possible for one to do the work and act on one's principles if you want to.
Yeah, depends if you have principles or not. AJ,
yeah. I think
talk us through your principles.
And if you don't like them, don't worry, I've got different ones. John says something quite just about how it's pervasive and how the kids' money just pour into Sony through the PlayStation revenues. I think this is where I struggle most with the subscription models is it's people in general are lazy and apathetic and don't quite get around to ever cancelling stuff, right? And that's not a moral judgment. It's just true. Like gyms wouldn't exist if people that weren't paying their subs, right? So I suppose that's where I have a problem with it, is that it enables like this constant creep of, before you know it, you've you've done a £5 for this, a £10 for that, 15 quid for the other. And it creeps up and, we pay £9 a month, whatever it is, for Amazon Prime. I've got no idea if that's worthwhile. My guess is probably not, actually. It's probably not worth it, but it locks me into that ecosystem a bit as well. And so it's probably something I should look at, but I've probably thought that for a long time. Equally, I think there's some things that in this race because it's recurring, sticky income for companies, there's been a race to introduce subscription stuff where really it's not needed. I think probably quite a lot of software is bad for this. Like I would look at, let's say, I don't want to libel anyone, but like Microsoft Office, for example.
Yeah, Office.
Sure. Used to be you buy a computer and you pay 110 quid or whatever it was on top, and you got Office 98 or whatever it was, and that was you sorted. Now, okay, it's cheaper up front, but I pay a tenner a month or whatever it is, and company does, and that's been like it for forever. That's been they've got way more.
We pay thousands a year, like probably 15 grand a year for all our software licenses at work. And we didn't have to pay that before. It was just we owned the software and we'd have it for 5 years, and then we'd buy again.
And they would argue that, because we're bringing new features and upgrading all the time and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Well,
features that you don't want.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's that's probably where I have the biggest problem. Yeah. I would summarize my position as, if people are subscribing out of choice, that is great. If they are forced into it, it's less great. And the race to introduce subscription models because it's sticky, recurring income, potentially has downsides for everyone that don't quite ever get round to cancelling or using these fantastic new features that they bring in.
Amen.
On that point, I don't know if you guys saw, there's some news today that the UK government, nothing's going to improve in the US. The UK government is moving to try and address that point about making it easier to cancel subscriptions. I didn't delve into it too far. I don't know how far they've got, but hopefully promising news on that front.
I don't think it's the ease of doing it that stops people. It will be in the margins, but I think it's the same reason that despite making it easier and easier and easier, no one changes bank accounts, because it's
right.
Just something. It's a job you never get round to.
Yeah. Sam?
True.
Oh, many things. Maybe I'll work backwards. Start with bank accounts. I moved bank account recently because they really.
When I say you don't, I agree. I have opened in recent times in bank account. What I would say is that we're talking in the aggregate, right?
I agree in the aggregate previously, but now it's so easy to open a bank account. If one of them annoys you, then you can just leave. I just left a bank last week. Do you know why I left? Because they refused to sort a chargeback out for me. And I went, do you know what? I've got loads of money with you. No, enough. I just left. And I sat over to the phone to them. I was like, just put me onto the team. I want to leave immediately. And then, oh, wow. Then I had a hell of a week of them trying to convince me to stay. And I was like, no, I'm leaving. Done. I'm going to take every penny I've got with you and I'm just going to go somewhere else over 50 quid. Just on principle, I've banked with you for 20 years. All I want you to do is to help me out here. And they kept going, computer says no. I was like, no, you can sort this out. And you absolutely can. So, and yeah. And even after I left, they've been trying to convince us to come, Lindsay and I, to come back. They called Lindsay because it was a joint account. And she was like, no, you're going to have to speak to my husband about it. He's very angry with you. I was like, yeah, he is really angry with you. So, pardon? Yeah, me getting angry about it. I was like, yeah, I was just like, so I think the bank thing's interesting because I think you're right, AJ. Traditionally, you'd never do that. But now it's so easy to open an account with two people. I think actually you're starting to maybe see that maybe this switching thing, and the government's done a great job. Again, I know lots of us have challenges with the UK government at the moment. They've been really good on some aspects, and this is one of them. Like digital switching of banking has actually turned out was really easy, so I just did it, and it's done now. And I don't feel guilty about it at all. And that partly came because it was so easy to open a Monzo account. So it was really easy for me to just move loads of money over to them and just change everything. So I was like, fine, let's do it. So be all right. Look, in aggregate, I'm sure lots of people don't change bank, but maybe alluding to what Dennis, you were just saying, you've been reading about the government are trying to work on this stuff. That seems like a good thing. I mean, one of the things I did read about that was, and this is a personal bugbear of mine, I don't know if you guys have the same issue. The thing that frustrates me most about subscriptions is renewal time, right? And all I want to know is, what was I paying and what am I paying now? That's the only thing I care about, right? And that used to be quite a difficult thing to work out, right? For me, that is no longer a difficult thing. One, because I got Gemini in my Gmail, and I just asked Gemini, right? And if Gemini can't work it out, right, I know very soon that at the moment we talk a lot about AI in one of our groups, and we won't get into too much of that here, right? But I've played around with OpenClaw, been connecting things to it, got terrified, turned it all off, right? There's going to come a point very quickly where I will feel comfortable connecting some form of AI, so all of the different financial services, things I interact with, and I'll be able to ask it questions like that and go, right, what am I actually paying for here? Like, work out, has it gone up? Has it gone down? And actually, can you now go work out what I should do about it? And that will just happen automatically. So I think there's going to be an incredible amount of switching behavior starting to happen very soon. I'd say within the next year, because as I can see it, Anthropic and Claude are replicating every single bit of functionality that OpenClaw had, other than the fact that I saw that today their entire source code got leaked and is now on GitHub. So that's bad. But, right,
Yes,
bit of danger.
What a disaster.
Bad. What a disaster for them. And people have then taken the source code and re-uploaded it to GitHub and added loads of malicious code for people to download and then just expose their computers. So bad days for them. But I think there's a really interesting world coming in now where maybe the government doing some legislation around it would be excellent. But also, I hope that people will become more aware of it. But there's services that we subscribe to a service called Emma, which does that across different accounts. I don't know if anyone's used that, which has been good.
Yeah, we use that.
But it's not good enough, in my opinion. Not good enough. We cancelled it because I decided it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough to do what we wanted it to do. But there's some exciting things, I think, coming along that way. And I wonder if this age of AI, we're actually going to, there's this new age of subscriptions. I don't know if I've talked to you guys about, I talked to you about Poppy AI at all.
No.
Poppy, they approached me to give them some advice. They've been through a few ups and downs and different. What they're doing is effectively reading your school emails and summarizing them and telling them what you actually need to do, you as an individual.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. I
right?
need that. Every day, another 300-word email comes through, and all I need to know is one time and one date.
Right. Okay. And it comes through as I'm about to start trialing the next version of it. It comes through in WhatsApp, right? So it just says, look, this is what you guys need to know about. This is about your child. All of the rest of the stuff's irrelevant, right? They're working on the next phase, which is integrating that into things like class WhatsApp groups. Like, this thing that somebody just posted is actually really important to you. You should probably be aware of it. There's some really interesting stuff coming. So my worry is, you talked about the amount that Gen Z are spending. Like, it feels like it's going to get worse, and even now I think I'm struggling to get a grip on, like, what am I actually paying for all the time, which is why we got Emma. And I still don't feel I've got a particularly good sense of, I was looking at our Google subscription. I got the sort of monthly bill through, and we have the family subscription for that. And I think that's probably quite good value because we have quite a lot of different Google products. But it took me quite a while to work out, like, we've got like 2 payments going out. I couldn't work out why. And I was trying to work out what services we got for that. And did that make sense? And are we getting ripped off? Turns out, actually, we've got an amazing deal. And we're going to get, at renewal time, we're going to get hammered, right? So we've got another great, like, 11 months. I don't know what I did to get that deal. But, that is now happening. It's a constant process. And I don't know about you guys. Do you feel that you're cancelling? I'd love to know if do you feel like you're more on it now and you're cancelling things that you go, maybe I'm not getting value for money out of that. Like, I cancelled Strava recently, which I just didn't feel like I was getting value out of. And they're constantly trying to win you back.
I don't at all. I mean, I'm one of those lazy humans we talked about earlier on. I went to the gym quite a lot last year. This year, not once. And I'm still paying for the gym. So, I'm losing hundreds of pounds on this. Why am I doing that? I just, maybe because one day I feel like I might go back there. I could just pause it. It's actually dead easy on the Pure Gym app. I can just press pause.
Yeah.
I tell you what, we're split testing this with Dan and Jake at the moment. We've signed Dan up for a gym subscription monthly, and we've signed Jake up to pay as you go. We're like, off you go.
Brilliant.
Let's see what happens.
Exactly this. Like, Hunter, I think you nailed it. Like, for the companies, moving to a subscription service is brilliant. They get constant income, but also it moves the decision for the consumer from being proactive to reactive. You proactively go to the gym and pay versus just not think about it and pay regardless. So it's wonderful.
It's brilliant for those billionaires, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Because if human behavior, if you take your eye off the ball, then all of a sudden a year's gone by and you've just spent $200 on Amazon that you didn't use, $200 on this that you didn't use, etc. So it then puts the ball's much more in the court of the consumer to be making sort of semi-regular checkups. So Meg and I did this about the banking and spending thing a month or so ago. Did a big review of all of our spends and sort of year-to-year stuff. And I was really struck by, as you said, Sam, how much of a ball ache it was to download all the CS. And I'm a data scientist, right? So this is sort of my bread and butter. And I was really struck by just how much of a drag it was. But also in the world of AI and stuff, and I've been using a bunch of that recently, I've also got on a sort of an eye on like, this was a real drag to do for the one-off. And I can really easily imagine that in less than a year, there's going to be some software where you just go to your banks, download your CSVs, upload them all into this thing. And it just tells you everything you need to know. You can have an open conversation with it. It'll advise spending patterns. It'll see, you can plug in your usage with Hulu and Amazon and Netflix and whatever. It'll say you're spending this much to watch this many films. You're basically spending $10 per episode of Shrinking or something like that. This is terrible VFM, whereas this is great VFM. You should get rid of these. You should keep this, whatever. I can well imagine we'll move to a world where it sort of automates or takes the 99% of the burden away of you having to do the decision-making way up and just tells you what you should do and maybe even does it for you.
Sounds fair. Sounds fair.
Yeah,
but I think
hard to disagree with that, isn't it? That would be great. I want that.
Yeah, but I think coming back full circle to where you started with, Dennis, this idea of, does ownership matter in certain ways? In some ways, I really feel that it does. There's been a lot of, and AJ, so you talk to your point about property as well. I've been reading quite a few things about how, particularly maybe in certain parts of London, you would have just been better off renting than buying now. There's obviously been, and you know way more about property than I do. I've just been reading some interesting things that in my head, it's in the UK, it's always been more sensible to buy than it has been to rent, right? And generally that seems to have been borne out by the odd boom here or there. But I think there's something quite interesting. Oh, hello. Yeah.
Hi, Linz.
We can see you.
Hello. Look at that.
And also,
I'm cold.
You're cold, so you're in a dressing gown, which now the whole of the internet can see.
Look at you.
That's worked out brilliantly for me. We'll leave that
Shall we
thought
move
there.
on to the next section?
Oh, we can do.
I'll try and cleverly segue it. I feel like that's what Sam was digging his way towards.
That's what I was heading to.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think it was more that I think you were right, Dennis, though. That in certain categories, ownership does matter. I think. I personally feel that housing is one because you can really make a mark on it and do something with it. And I know, AJ, you've obviously bought a house reasonably recently, and you guys are making a real mark on it, and it's brilliant and it looks fantastic, right? Okay, and you think of like Tim and Kate and the amazing work they've done on their house, right? And John, you're working on a project at the moment. Obviously, Dennis, you've been doing stuff to your place, but there's something really, really important, I think, about ownership. I'm obviously going through that phase now. I'd say in two different ways. One with my car, that obviously there's always something wrong with it, but I love that I own it, right? I love that it's mine. Versus I went to like a Hyundai dealership and was looking at an electric car, and he was like, "How would you want to pay for this?" And I was like, "Lease it." I was like, "I don't want to own this thing. This is a depreciating electric vehicle asset." It's not that I have an issue with electric vehicles. It's more that it's obvious that the value of this is going to tank. So I don't want that to be on my balance sheet. I want that to be on your balance sheet. So, and I think with music as well, I'm going backwards in some ways, I would say, but at the same time, I'm trying to balance that. I had a great conversation with my mum recently. We were talking about vinyl. She's been buying a lot of vinyl. They've got a vinyl player in their house. She really enjoyed listening to it. And she was talking about, though, I was talking to her about, we had a dinner party recently where somebody really wanted to listen to an album that Lindsay had. And I kept having to get up in the meal to like turn the record over, or go and get the next one and put that on. And it actually did become quite annoying. And I didn't stop doing it because they really wanted to listen to it. And we just carried on. It was like an 8-disc collection with multiple sides, and it was fine. I was chatting to my mum about this, and she said, back in their day at university, that was a real like argument thing of who's going to get up and turn the record over.
Right.
I never really thought about that. I just thought she's like, I love Spotify. It's the greatest. She's like, don't get me wrong, I like listening to a record every so often, but she gets way more angry about it quickly than I do. Because she's like, you don't remember how terrible it was to have to turn over records. She's like, I know you had to turn over tapes, but they were longer. She's like, CDs were longer. You never had the row of it's your turn to go and turn the record over. So maybe you should just enjoy the fact that, frankly, everything's better and we don't have outdoor toilets. So.
Fair.
And
that's a good point. That's a good point. All right, just to wrap up the home ownership thing, just reminded me what you said there about this guy, Dave Ramsey, who's a financial advisor on YouTube. He's probably the most famous financial advisor in America on public media like that. And one of the things one of his steps in his sort of 7-step program is pay off your mortgage, right? And for me, as a sort of semi-property guy, I'm like, well, why would you ever pay off your mortgage? It's super cheap money. You could take whatever else money you've got, and you should just buy another investment property or put it on stocks or shares or do some kind of other investment. So like maybe the maths works out better like that. But he came up with a really interesting point, which I've never experienced. But apparently, once you pay off your mortgage, it is one of the best feelings in the world, because then you've just got the ability to lose your income and you've still got somewhere to live, right? You have this big thing that means no one can take it away from you. And no matter what happens, it's yours. And there's no bank against you. And I wonder if that's true. I think it probably is to an extent. It's probably going to give you a pretty good feeling when you've got that, and you don't have to pay a man. You don't have to pay a mortgage man. You don't have to give any more interest to the bank. And it's yours. No? Property tax?
Well, yeah.
So we're probably 2 years away from paying off our mortgage. Lucky us. But in Silicon Valley, property tax is bonkers. So we'll still be paying however much. I honestly don't know how much it is, but it's not nothing at all. Property tax every year. So that's like, if we were completely out of income, obviously the expectation is that you'll have a pension and that plays down, blah, 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 blah. But if for whatever reason, all of a sudden you're bringing in zero, I think that would mean that if we can't pay our property taxes, we're out on our ear. I presume. I don't have any idea.
I think Dave Ramsey's steps 1, 2, 3 up to the mortgage thing are like, get enough money in a bank for 1 month, get enough money in a bank for 6 months, right? So he, I'm sure he covers that. I don't know too much about this guy, but I just thought it was interesting that there is a real sort of psychological advantage to not paying a mortgage every month. And I don't know if we'll ever get there because of the way. And
anything that we've just said is something that we've overlooked throughout all of this, which is that the four of us here were probably quite rationalist in our outlook and how we think about things. But obviously there are certain things. Music would be one, for some people it would be films. House is an obvious one. For Sam, it's a car. That there is an emotional element that overrides everything else. And the joy that you get from ownership outweighs the convenience of a subscription model. And it's
absolutely. I think that's probably the lesson.
Economics can't account for it.
We're a bunch of weird, odd humans that behave in really weird ways, and sometimes we get addicted to things when things are made addictive, and we throw our hands up in the air and say, "It wasn't my fault."
Brilliant.
Not bad. All right.
Then move on to what's the next one, Hansi?
I wonder where we'd go with that.
Very good.
All right, next question then. Should tech companies be held legally responsible for making their products addictive? It's a pretty simple one, but let me give you some background. For years, platforms like Meta and Google have been designed to maximize attention, notifications, infinite scroll, autoplay, algorithmic feeds. But in March 2026, this has just happened. A jury in LA found both companies legally liable for designing addictive products that harmed a young user. I nearly said young loser there. Freudian, awarding $6 million in damages. The case argued that features like infinite scroll and algorithmic recommendations were deliberately engineered to drive compulsive use, particularly in kids. The jury agreed, concluding the platforms were negligent in how they were designed and failed to warn users of the risks. This is being described as a potential big tobacco moment for big tech, with thousands of similar cases now lined up behind it. Zuckerberg must be shitting himself. So the question is no longer whether these platforms are addictive, but whether that should come with legal consequences. Who's got a good answer for me? AJ.
Sam puts his hand up.
I've been giving some thought to this. I have a number of different thoughts. I'm just going to reel off one by one. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all,
put it together in like a Debtor's idea cloud with no.
Okay. And you can pick out. You can take what you want from it. I will agree with all three of you, despite you having three different opinions. It's fine. My first thought is, what does legal responsibility look like for most things where we have addictions, or not most, but for some things we have addictions, such as smoking? The society tries to counter that through taxes. So are we talking about a tax on such platforms? And if so, how is that levied? That's thought one. Thought two was, where do you draw the line? You could make a very strong argument that what newspapers are trying to do is to compete and maintain our attention and engagement. Would they come under this sort of the purview of such things? I would also say, I think there is a subtle difference here between various different types of tech. I would say there are platforms such as Twitter and Facebook, to use use millennial era ones. I'm sure there's TikTok and others that the youngsters use. That obviously, the longer they keep your attention, the more they make money. As in, there's a pretty direct relationship between how long you spend on somewhere and what their revenue is. I would say there is a slightly different model with, let's say, your Netflixes, your Disney Pluses, or whatever, which is they are competing for your attention so that you pay the same subscription the following month. Their revenue is not in a direct correlation with how much time you spend on it. I could watch one film on Netflix, or I could watch it all day, every day, and I would still pay the same amount each month. To my mind, the second ones of those, the streaming platforms, they are less pernicious as a result. I'm not quite sure how that is reflected in any sort of legal or tax basis for them. I just think it is an enormously complicated issue, and I think there's also the element here, there has to be at some point an element of personal responsibility. There are lots of things in this world that are addictive that we don't then go back and legally penalize the people that provide them. We accept that people using them, we accept that some people are able to use them normally and healthily, like alcohol, and that, taxes notwithstanding, they shouldn't be penalized for the few that can't use it healthily. In practice, I just don't know how this plays out. I don't know how. I can't see a mechanism that's effective, that doesn't that doesn't ride roughshod over other people that aren't doing anything particularly bad, that can effectively stop the badness. Sorry, that's quite a depressing.
Yeah, but I agree with you, because if you extrapolate what's just happened to every user getting something like $6 million, well, these companies just disappear and they stop giving this service, right? So for one person to get $6 million because they became addicted, I don't know. Maybe it's a horrible story and maybe there's some really terrible repercussions there. But you're on the personal responsibility point. I sort of agree. I mean, you've got to. I think humans should be able to do whatever we want, right? And not be told by somebody else what we can and can't do. And therefore there will always be things that are bad for you that you can do. And sometimes those are really fun, like getting really drunk, really fun for a bit, isn't it? but you learn pretty quickly that it's not very good for you the next day.
Yeah, right.
As Prince Harry's been finding out over the last day or so. So
yes, exactly.
appears to have forgotten an entire period of his entire life.
Yeah, I mean, are the alcohol companies told that they've got to give anyone who's addicted to alcohol a load of money? No, they're just taxed heavily, aren't they? And so if I saw a long-term mechanism, I think you're right, AJ, about the tax point. That's what we've got to do, isn't it? Impose some levy on them to help people who get in trouble with it. You've got to remember that these companies, whilst it would be interesting to shut them all down because of legal threats, some of it is actually really good.
Yeah.
I was talking to my wife last night about it, and we were talking about all the interior design stuff we pick up from Instagram.
Yeah.
We're just doing this house up down the middle of Bath, and we've just finished the bathroom. It looks wicked and looks so great because we picked up a load of these ideas on Instagram. So that it's not. I'm not saying that is the counterpoint to somebody being horribly addicted and doing something stupid, but these things are all right. Let's figure out a way to do it. If you look at something like Snapchat with a daily streak requirement, now that I could see a case for getting in there and banning that. But I think if I was the government, I would look at how we can tweak the requirements for these apps and ban the more addictive features, but keep the good things in there. I appreciate that is an incredibly difficult thing to do, but we can make steps towards that, like banning this daily streak bullshit. Dennis, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how difficult it is. If you think back to the original iteration of Facebook, for example, that was great. It was like you walked into a pub or a room and all your mates from all around the world were just in there chatting, sharing jokes, whatever. And they did very deliberately, and there's a quote that you put in there, the platforms were negligent in how they were designed. My fat dick they were. They weren't negligent.
It was on purpose.
They very deliberately made it as addictive as possible. They very deliberately changed the formula over and over again. Guy that I worked with down the road worked on the team that worked out how many posts you could see in a row before they would have an advert, and they worked out that 9 was the minimum number of posts that people would tolerate. As in, if you have it less than 9 content posts between ads, people would be sick of it. So that's like, there's real research going in there, and that's sort of where it feels to me like we constantly come back to this concept of, it's personal responsibility, as if it's this fair balance, like citizens are, because that hinges on the idea that all citizens are informed and rational voters or actors, and they're just weighing up their decisions in that sense. And it just feels like that's so counter to what we know to be true when you've got huge corporations spending millions and millions on R&D and lobbying for marketing, for psychological elements of smells and sights, and where you turn when you come into a shop, putting chocolate in front of the counters, all these kind of psychological tricks that make it a completely unbalanced scale that let even well-educated, well-informed actors and people, puts them completely at a disadvantage compared to these companies that are doing everything they can and spending, like I say, millions and billions lobbying, bribing to make sure that they keep getting away with it, especially in America, right? Again, this is coming back to sort of standard charade for me now. The American model, move fast and break things, no oversight at all, completely hands-off capitalism. Corporations spin up at a great speed, and then by the time they get a slap on the wrist for breaking all the rules, they've got so much money, it's meaningless to them, and they can afford to keep paying to keep the Monopolies Commission not working and blah, 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 blah. I've been absolutely delighted to see this ruling. I'm delighted to think that this could be the beginning of this, and with what we're seeing with Iran and the rest of the world, Europe especially, finally being forced to make their own decisions and stand up against the US, is that we, as the rest of the world nations, will start to have some ability to push back against the US going, we've created these software companies, they're going to basically pollute society, and if you're lucky, you get some good interior design out of it, and hey, we've got reels now, but all of your kids are committing suicide. That's a fucking terrible trade-off. And there really are pretty obvious ways that we can start to install things to say, we're not going to allow this anymore. And if you want to operate in this country, A, you've got to pay taxes, and B, you can't have this. You can't have infinite scroll. You can't have blah, 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 blah. There's got to be child controls. There's got to be all this stuff. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off. You can't be in our country, tough shit. If we just grew a pair of balls, then all of this stuff is really easy. But we need to grow that set of balls, and it feels like maybe it's going to start happening. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that. Right, I think they do. That's the answer, isn't it? The answer is not infinite payouts from legal cases throughout the world. I mean, I said in the question, legal cases are lining up. Of course, why wouldn't you? If you've got a chance of winning a $6 million payout, I mean, how many of those need to happen before they say, okay, well, look, we're going to change our system, and we're going to take out some of these more addictive features, and maybe that creates less revenue, so maybe you've got to start paying for it, or another subscription. How about that? So, maybe that's the answer, but I would love to see it. Love to see more responsible use of social media, particularly in the kids' generation. Then, why wouldn't that be the best outcome for everybody, especially if they were able to make as much money as they did before just through subscriptions?
Yeah, it just strikes me as strange that we've gotten to a place where we're sort of passively okay with the idea of, especially from the UK perspective, foreign companies polluting society, not contributing, and we're just like, okay, well, that's just the way society is now. Whereas in the old, sort of to make an analogy to an older time, if someone rocked up in town and just started this factory that's just pumping out toxic fumes everywhere, they would be shut down, right? Like the government, so you can't do that. There's air pollution laws, there's whatever, kids are dying, da-da-da-da. This would be controlled. And yet we've been sort of okay with that not happening for loads of facets of modern life. I'm absolutely convinced this is in large part to huge lobbying and bribery by the companies themselves of going, yeah, don't do anything about this, it's fine. Whereas that's the role of government, is to protect the society from negative consequences of selfish actors, right?
Amen. Sam, what do you think?
I think one thing I thought about quite a bit was, do you think people would actually want a non-addictive version, right? So if there was no infinite scroll, no autoplay, no chronological feeds only, would people use it, right? So people, I think to your point about personal responsibility, if people prefer the addictive version, you do get to who's really responsible. It seems to me that, yes, we've had this one case, but, it's obviously going to go to appeal. It will go on for a long time. But I agree, there's a direction of travel here, which I don't disagree with. But one of the things I've thought quite a bit about is this debate between kids and adults. Right? Are we really just talking about kids? Right? We're talking about addiction here. Are we talking about kids, or are we actually talking about both sets? Right? And where do you start to draw the line? Right? Would we have different sets of rules for children that we maybe wouldn't have for adults? Okay, around what limits might look like.
Tobacco, alcohol, gambling, all the above, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to let a 13-year-old walk into a casino. So the challenge here is that, unlike smoking or booze, there's maybe no immediate physical damage. It's a different type of harm, isn't it? It's anxiety, it's self-esteem, it's attention fragmentation that frustrates me. Well. Yeah, it's much harder to regulate, but it's more of a challenge. And I think your point around, do we pay for this, right? You can't have these things being free. Like, we're the products, right? We've all known that for a long time. But would you pay? One thing I always used to think particularly was about WhatsApp. They did start off, there was a point where you paid, like,
£1.
£1, right? I'd still pay £1 a month for WhatsApp to just have stayed just like WhatsApp. It would have been freaking awesome, right?
Same here. If it was a choice of paying a quid or a couple of quid a month, or they put reels into WhatsApp like flipping Snapchat, without a shadow of a doubt, they can make loads of money.
Yeah, I think so. But so where does this start to end up? Warning labels on apps, time limits by law, age verification, lawsuits. I think it sounds like I'm kind of arguing against it. I don't think I am really, right? I think that Australia, I think, has led the way here, right? By by putting in place that ban, whether that's crude or not, there's a very clear direction of travel around the addictive nature of these platforms. I wonder if maybe partly this has changed because a lot of the people that built and designed these platforms now have children, right? In the same vein that a lot of people in Silicon Valley are not sending their kids to traditional types of schools, and Steve Jobs didn't let his kids have all kinds of different devices. I recall reading his autobiography and didn't let him. I don't know if Zuckerberg lets his kids use his own products, right? Suddenly, you've got this wave of people becoming parents and going, maybe not. One of the just as a quick aside, we obviously don't have the most interesting person here who would have brilliant views on this, who obviously also would not be allowed to talk about it, which is a real disappointment for all of us. And that's only an inside thing that we can talk about now because he's got very strong views on this. But there is this money question that he recently lent very strongly into when we were all talking about it. Right, these things exist to make money, and they're going to keep going in this. I'm sure they'll fight this as long as possible. I'm sure they've sat and mapped this out and gone, we can fight this for 10 years. A bit like with Ford when they had the old bumpers and, and the explosions, and they sat and did the cost benefit analysis and went, it's not worth replacing them. We'll just suck up the lawsuits, right? I imagine that conversation was had a very long time ago. And what they'll do is just hold out for as long as they can, and they'll make the changes that they need to make when they're told to make those changes. I think the thing that upset me most is it was very clear that research was done into the nature of addiction, right? And research was done into what some of these platforms were doing to people. They knew about the harm. And I think that's where the reality is, where these lawsuits and where that direction of travel is going is there were significant numbers of people that were aware of some of the problems, and they decided not to do anything about it. So
that's where the smoking thing. Sorry.
Yeah. No, go for it, mate.
That's where the smoking comparison is most appropriate.
Yeah.
The tobacco companies didn't get sued for killing people. They got sued because they knew they were killing people.
Yeah.
That's the. It seems like a fine line, but that's the thing that you're right is to my mind the most reprehensible of it. That it's the knowing and continuing to do.
Yeah, it's a known risk. Shouldn't you have to tell people, right? And it's just, it's not, I think, and then the worst thing is you really get a sense it's targeted very vulnerable users, right? They seem to identify people that are most susceptible, right? Lonely teenagers, right? People showing signs of stress, people spending excessive time. It kind of detects that vulnerability and leans into it, to use Sheryl Sandberg's own line, right? It's not just addictive. It knows like who's the weakest and then like kind of leans into it. So it's all these kind of dark patterns that are going on. I think also just some of these platforms misrepresent what the platform is. Particularly Zuckerberg talks about connecting the world, but actually, if the real product, your products, you said this earlier, I think, John, that product's your attention, right? But it's never made that explicit. And like, how honest is that? So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic though that it feels like there's a shift here, right? There's a trend. Right? Whether it's going on in lawsuits, whether it's going on in discussions with families, with parents, with governments, the trend is a good trend. And it might take longer to play out than we would all want it to. But I'm really optimistic now that people are going to go, this is bad for our kids. And it's bad for adults as well.
I'm really hopeful that that trend continues for sure, but also that this starts to mark a general trend globally of basically not being so naive in thinking that companies are going to be empathetic or act on good faith. If you just assume that companies, once they get to a certain size, if they've got a choice between harming people in society and making money, they'll choose making money for themselves and their shareholders literally every time. Assume no morality, then we get to a better place much quicker by having people, governments pushing back against them and going, right, well, you can't do this. We see where you're going. We're not going to assume, it was an accident. We didn't know about smoking or all the other things that they do know about, obviously, alcohol, gambling, blah, 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 blah. Assume they're all acting predatorily and legislate against the bad bits immediately. And maybe we end up in a good place much quicker. Samuel?
Well, I just think you've always got to remember, right? And having probably been the only one of us who went to business school reasonably recently, okay? Lecture one, right? Companies exist to make money, right?
Sure.
And
Right.
as a director of a company, if you go and read the model articles of association of any company, right? Your job is to maximize profits. It's not to save the world. Okay, that is literally the point. So I always feel a bit sorry that people seem to get confused about that point, right? They exist to make money. Companies exist to make money first. Everything else is secondary, right? And yes, fine, you might get other companies that start themselves off and change those articles, right? Because they decide they want to become a B corporation, like we did with Carfi as an example, right? Where we said, we think there's a balance here. We can make money, but we can still do good, right? The vast majority of companies don't have that, right? And they have shareholders and they have people that invested, and their job is to maximize. So I think sometimes it's naive to think that that's not the point of a company, right? It's not always the point, and which is why we do have governments to sometimes regulate and go, this isn't right or this is wrong, right? But if you're having been a company director, right, and a CEO and had a board to report to, my job is to make money, right? That was the point, right? And it's about the balance then of how do you want to run a company? How do you do that? Particularly if you've got, venture capitalists sort of getting in, and if you lean back into the subscription model, a lot of them were like, subscriptions are great because we can model this really well. Right, it's much easier for us to model a subscription, much easier for us to work out how we're going to make loads of money. So let's make sure we move everything to subscription, because frankly, it's much harder to model a marketplace, right? It's always much harder to model a single purchase business where maybe someone doesn't come back for a year. They don't want to do that. It's complicated, right? It's much more risky than a really easy renewal business. So I think, don't come away from that, right? These companies are doing what they're meant to be doing sometimes. Right. And I think sometimes it's people lose that because, and obviously you and I probably sit at different ends of the capitalism versus socialism spectrum, right? I'm comfortable with companies trying to make money, because if they do that well, then usually what they do, not always, is they invest in innovation, they invest in new products, they grow that, they create jobs, they create wealth, not necessarily brilliantly distributed, but that's the idea. And we haven't seemed to have come up with a better system yet. So not wanting to get into a massive thing about.
I agree with you. And I think maybe that's the disconnect. It's like, if we assume all companies are prepared to be as evil as they need to be to make the maximum profit, and we're not naive and we don't take on face value their things about don't be evil or anything they'll say to the press or anything they'll put in their press releases, like you say, core principle, make money regardless of what societal negative societal impacts. We just go, okay, we're going to assume you're going to try and be as evil as you need to be to make the most profit. Fine. And then the other half is, and these are the government controls that we're going to constantly, like very vigilantly put on you to make sure that you can grow as much as you need to, but not at the expense of breaking the rules, destroying the rest of society. Then that feels like the fair balance of social checks and balances capitalism. And then great. But the problem has been, for the last however many years, we've had very little in the way of checks and balances on monopolies, on move fast and break things, on testing things in society. Again, largely driven by Silicon Valley and America, which hopefully is coming to an end. Andrew?
As someone who is slightly skeptical of how effective legislation can be, on the basis that there are always ways around it, or it can be, legal battle through, or whatever it is, does this actually ultimately change with the consumer, with them having to change to meet changing consumer demands? Social media use amongst adults is apparently, forgive me, I haven't followed the source, but is at the very has leveled off and is perhaps in some cases even falling. I don't have a Facebook and Twitter account now. I've never had Instagram. If there was X, if there was an X equivalent that didn't take up my time and suck in my attention so much, I would probably use it. So given that, for example, classes, parents at school and stuff having conversations about all having the same approaches to when their kids have access to this stuff, does a social media platform that has fewer of these pernicious elements, does that emerge and become more successful as a result of it being one that people are comfortable using themselves and letting their kids use? If there was a non-addictive one, what I'm saying is, would the change come just from market forces and catering to what consumers are after, or are we ultimately just a bit too simple beings for that, and we'll just go for the addictive thing every time.
Well, there's a bit of a case study here with Blue Sky, which is the ethical version.
Yeah, but it's not though, Dennis, is it? Because it might be ethical, but it doesn't do the same job. It doesn't give me it doesn't. Twitter, when it started, was an incredibly effective tool for work for me. It became a completely ineffective tool. Blue Sky does not have the reach and access and the people contributing, enough people contributing to it for it to be useful to me.
I have it and don't really use it either. And is that why? Just because people didn't fully switch, everyone just kind of people just fell out of it, and it wasn't, and it needs that full world network effect to really work wonderfully. And without it, it's a bit like whatever.
Probably.
Is that the reason?
I don't know, but for me, it would be.
You want to try Truth Social, guys? Why aren't you on that?
You're right, John. I want the truth, so that's where I should go. You're absolutely right.
And it must be true if it's on Truth Social.
They never lie about that.
I have to admit, I did find people migrating over to Blue Sky quite amusing. You know, like we've just got to leave Twitter. We've just got to leave X. We've got to go to this new. I was like, it obviously wasn't going to work. It's like, look, this is the place. Unlike you, AJ, you know, as you know, I implanted the fire hose of Twitter into my head years ago, and I absolutely love it. I would love to be able to turn it off, but I can't. For me, I feel like it just gets better every single time I open it. It's just absolute chaos. I really don't understand what they're doing over there, but there's just so many. It's just but I've now limited that, so I'm only allowed an hour a day on it. So, which even then sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? An hour a day on Twitter.
Yeah.
But that's because I get more value out of Twitter or X than I do out of any of the other apps. I see and read and hear about more on that than I do on anything else. And all I try and do now is spend a lot of time trying to add in different voices from people maybe that I wouldn't traditionally have followed to make sure I'm trying to get a balanced view. I don't think it works particularly well, but you do get some incredible stuff on there. You mentioned about would some of these other apps maybe start to take over. I think if you look at our group in particular, we're all fundamentally off. Well, none of us are posting on Facebook, let's call it, I would argue. Very rarely. If we are, it's probably because we posted something maybe on Instagram and it's cross-pollinated onto Facebook. It's not intentional. But would we use something like Kin? I don't know if you've heard of Kin. It's, you know, like a more of a private, it's like Instagram kind of used to be. There's a few different ones like that. Would we all move over to that so we could post things? I'm not sure we need to now. But I don't know about you. I don't really post on Instagram very often, maybe like a couple of times a year. But I do post on WhatsApp a lot because it's private and we can talk there. You know, we can talk there about different things, and we post messages and we post. I've said, you know, a great example would be in my family. We post our photos in WhatsApp, right? Because we know they go straight into our camera roll, right? I don't need a social network. I don't need to publicly show loads of pictures of my kids. I rarely do now. I did maybe a bit when I was younger, and I've actually gone back and deleted a lot of that now. So I wonder if your point around that trend of have we hit some kind of peak point? Maybe are we now moving into that world that you've described, John, where it's more, let's call it business related content. You're talking about interior design. It's people that are actively trying to push that out there. Sometimes that's all right. You know, I have to admit, I don't mind Instagram now because generally my adverts are great. They seem to push stuff that I want to watch. It's got a pretty good idea of who I am as a human. And I see some stuff my friends every so often, particularly people I don't maybe message on WhatsApp that often. And it's nice to see what they're up to. So for me, Instagram's pretty cool, pretty benign place now where I get a mix of ads for things I probably want to buy, and that's well done them. You know, I get to see loads of terrible stuff about Tottenham, about what an awful team we are, which I need at the moment, and I see the odd picture from my mates of people I don't see. That's kind of cool. That's good for half an hour, sat on the sofa every night. I don't have an issue particularly at the moment with Instagram, but I can certainly see, I worry about the impact of the messaging maybe behind the scenes, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's what I'm sorry about for my boys.
And part of that is your own curation, right? And indeed, I wonder how much of it is also where we are in our lives. We've probably gone past the peak. We're coming down the trough of like expansionism and whatever, down to got our family, tighter core of mates, We've also seen all of the worst of what is the current generation of social media, where it's just all been shitified. Like I say, the original Facebook, where it's just your mates, was great, and you like post fun shit. And now, not only has it gotten shitter, but also you're older, you're a manager instead of just some gobshite with nothing to lose, right? There's a real sense now that anything on the internet is around forever and there's consequences, whereas before you could, I don't know, play cock or ball on Facebook and get away with it or whatever. Like all of that that world is gone, right? So I wonder how much of it is the times and how much of it is us. But I guess you can't pull those things apart from in social media because we've grown up across that timeline, right?
Very, very true. On that note, shall we move on? I think that was a good. I'm not going to bother trying to make any kind of segue at some point. I was going to talk about we've all grown in our careers, and now
Well, I've grown in my career. I'm recently thinking about landing a big project. You know,
I was heading in that direction as well. Oh,
It's
I like
perfect.
just quickly, I very much enjoyed the two different approaches there. My wife came in an interesting dressing gown, said hi. Bells came in a slightly more BBC chap, child's run in, quick in out. So it's
One of the
interesting,
greatest
different.
videos on the internet, that isn't it? When
But
that
yeah,
comes
yeah.
in.
just incredible, just incredible. So let's
The
talk
sort of
about
video you might see on Instagram.
the sort of video you might
And
repeatedly. Actually,
if you didn't have Instagram, you would never see it.
you would have never seen that
There you
video.
go. Bring in comedy despite the addiction.
Oh, right, okay, right. I'd love to say welcome back from a commercial break. That wasn't a commercial break, we're just fucking around behind the scenes. So, car section. You've landed a huge project. You're meeting the client for the first time. Serious money, serious expectations. This is the kind of job that could change everything. You arrive on site. The client's already there. They clock your car immediately. They won't say anything, but you know that they're judging you. You've got £10,000 to spend. So this car needs to say you're competent, you're reliable, you're not reckless, but you're also not boring. So what do you turn up in? And what does it say about you? Now, the follow-up twist to this would be halfway through the meeting, they say, nice car. What made you choose it? And do you feel confident about explaining your choice or slightly exposed? And so, without further ado, while I mess around trying to work out where I'm
and
going,
remember, for all slides, we have to
bum,
describe them
bum,
for the.
we do have to describe them. So when we're showing stuff on screen, we've been made aware by our incredible audience. We're very big in China with some bots that we need to describe things. So they let us know directly. Here we go. I don't know who this is.
It's
John,
me.
you're up.
It's me, and you already know it's a great choice. It ticks every one of those four boxes. It's a Toyota GT86. This is a 13 plate on 96,000 miles on the clock, but that is nothing for a Toyota. It's a smidge under 10 grand. I think it's not, it doesn't say that you're incompetent. It says you're a bit of a boy racer, probably. It definitely says you're reliable because you're a Toyota. You're not reckless because, you know, otherwise you'd have probably a Vauxhall Nova with a massive bass box in the boot or something like that. And I don't think this is a boring car. I think this is one of the most reliable, unboring cars you could probably get. With the 10 grand, I went off shopping virtually, and I went to Car and Classic Festival and looked through all these classic cars that were all brilliant and would say great things about you, but they would not say you're reliable, almost any of them. So I moved on from Car and Classic, and I went to Piston Heads, and I filtered by price, high mileage, so that I get something decent, and some level of speed. And there were loads of these for just under 10 grand, and I think they're great.
Nice.
And I think I also think that if you know about cars, you also know that this is a pretty sweet little motor. So you might, you know, if someone's judging you about cars, they obviously know about cars, and they will know that this was a widely well regarded piece of kit.
Very nice.
There you go.
AJ,
very
as the
fast though. It's 0 to 60 in something like 7.5 seconds, which is
Hey.
ages.
I want to get man of the people, AJ's view. Notoriously not a car enthusiast. So what's your take on this?
You will be far better at this game than I was, as we'll see in a moment. I think that looks like a solid choice, Hunty. I have, if I'm honest, I'm not sure I have an opinion, but I suppose in a way, isn't that
Yeah.
isn't that
Well,
a good
that's
thing?
the problem.
I guess.
It's really difficult to have an opinion on this one because you have to be competent, reliable, and not reckless. And so, if you those are 3 out of the 4 criteria, so it's got to be a Toyota. and they're perhaps not the most exciting things, but I don't think this one's boring. But I remember a client came to me once and turned up in a Passat, and I thought he can't afford to build a golf course. And then over the time, I got to know him, and it turns out he's got many Aston Martins and Ferraris lined up in garages, but he'll always go to the first meeting in a Passat estate because he doesn't want anyone to judge him based on cars or wealth, particularly.
Yeah, is there a wealth thing there?
Right.
Like the landed gentry worth millions, but bundle around in a knackered old Subaru sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. You'll never see a more knackered pair of leather shoes than on a billionaire.
Yeah, quite.
It's a weird thing at that level. Yeah. Dennis, what do you think? Are you up for a Toyota GT86?
Similar to AJ, mate. Very few notes. I feel like you've got the briefing bang on here. Looks nice enough. Yeah, I presume it's reliable, does the job. If I was, am I the client? I'm the client. I'd be like, yeah, this guy's got his head screwed on. Yeah, box ticked.
And
here,
importantly, not a wanker as well, right? Because there's lots of cars you could turn up in. Yeah,
bit of boy racery looks, but like you say, terrible performance. But it sounds like that doesn't matter, right? Like I want you to be reliable and competent and not reckless. So if you're like reaching off the line, you're counting against those factors. So yeah, nicely done.
All right, let's see how much Sam hates it.
I fucking hate it. Absolutely terrible choice. Right. For a number of reasons. So much wrong with this. Right. One, it's white. Right. As we've all discussed at length.
White cars are faster. I've told you so many times white cars are faster.
Yeah. White cars work, as we've discussed, white cars work if you live in California. Right. They don't work in Stevenage. Okay. And there's nothing against Stevenage. Right. We could have.
I don't think there's ever been a life-changing deal in Stevenage, Sam.
No, but white car, bad start, right? Someone turns up in a white car, you're like, what? There's all the other colours, right? Okay. You've certainly not picked it because you understand depreciation, where you put the dark metallic, right? So I've suddenly start to go, interesting. Don't care about depreciation that much. I think the second thing is, you look at this and you go, is he actually any good at his job? Because this is the shittest thing you can get. Like, this is it, right? Could he not? If you're going to buy a sports car, buy a fucking sports car, right? Don't pretend to buy a sports car, which is what this is, right?
You've got to be reliable, though. You've got to be reliable.
That's fine.
That's the question.
That's fine. But if you're going to buy one of these, you're going to buy an MX-5, right? You can respect an MX-5, right? You can go, yeah, great. Not this thing, right?
I'm not sure that most people, unless you're a proper car nut, you're not really respecting an MX-5. I think the vast majority of people out there would look at an MX-5 and think it's a hairdresser car.
I think they'd look at this and think, maybe not using the hairdresser slur, unfair on many successful hairdressers out there. But I think that they would pump this car into the same category. They'd be like, what is that? Like, why? If you're going to buy a sports car, buy a proper sports car, right? And maybe they feel the same about the MX-5. Yes, I think they might also go, why would you buy a Toyota sports car? Like, because they don't know the heritage, they don't know there's some cool stuff there. So they might tick the, yeah, he's reliable. But I think they also might think, maybe he's a bit of a weirdo. This is a weirdo car choice. Maybe I'm not sure.
By the way,
maybe I'm not sure about him.
The question doesn't say it has to be a sports car.
I didn't say it.
A lot.
Yeah,
of
and I think
XJRs, by the way.
I'm sure
it just doesn't get the reliability, does it?
No, but I think that's it. You're a bit like, oh, okay, he drives so that's the first thing. He drives a sports car. Okay, and then you're like, he drives a shit sports car, right? It's not like he drives a cool sports car. He drives a shit sports car. Okay, so yeah, I think you get judged. I think there definitely be some be some questions about it. So yeah, I'm not sure. For me, it's a 3-4 out of 10 choice. So
Oh no, that's so low. All right,
Yeah.
let's try
I
harder.
was going to say a 3-4 out of 10. Sam's general impression there, that feels like a 6 to 7 out of 10 for Sam. Like, this is where it's good to have Dan and other real car folks on here as well, because you get more car folks' opinions. Like me and AJ, seems reasonable.
Sure.
You've read the brief, fine. Turns out we were wrong.
But maybe you guys. But this is it. Maybe you're right. And of course, the poll on Spotify in particular can, people can vote and they can make a choice. I would just go. Maybe you're right. Maybe the person on the street would look at this and go, kind of cool. That's a bit different. That's fine, right? Whereas, no, for me, I'd go, come on.
I can't wait to see your special edition Skoda popping up again in your section.
I was going to use that
I'm
again
very
this week.
excited. Do you know what? I nearly did. I really nearly did put it straight in. Particularly because
it sort of fits this time.
It kind of fits this brief. And I thought AJ was on as well. And he obviously, as the owner of a Skoda, likes it. Right. Let's move on. I don't know who's next. So
AJ.
I can't explain why I chose this car. I haven't bought many cars in my life. I think I've only bought one actually. I went on Auto Trader and put in £10,000 upper limit, and for some reason, all I could think was I wanted a Mark II Golf, and I've got no idea why. And this
did you want a white one, a white GTI 8 valve with 5-spoke wheels and big bumpers that you would maybe bat around at university in?
It isn't what I wanted, but it was the one that was closest to £10,000. It was £9,995. And I don't think it's very me, but I'm going to have to lean into this and defend my position. One, no one ever regretted buying a Golf, did they? Did they? No.
They did when they're 35 years old, and you're trying to get across a message.
No, you're right, AJ. I had a Golf GTI at one point. It was brilliant. I gave it to my brother, and he has only relatively recently retired it. In fairness, it was a great car for both of us. Yeah, he bought it off me because he loved it so much every time we went out in it, and then he probably kept it. I mean, I had it for at least 5 years. He must have had it for longer. I think maybe coming up 10. He loved that car so much, he just didn't want to get rid of it. He thought it was brilliant. Yeah, no, you're right, absolutely right. A Golf is solid.
My Golf of either that era or the one after was kind of crap and a little bit follier party.
Yeah, but Dennis, I don't think any car you drive should be put the same criteria as someone else driving them.
This is the same car, though.
No,
I'll take that usually, but
no,
all Golfs are great. I had a Golf and it wasn't great. Excluded.
No. What I mean is you're driving. Yes.
I didn't cause the fucking engine to catch fire and explode and whatever. It's just
you did in a way.
Why? Shame.
Right.
You manifested it.
I work in PR. There's a bit more room for creative flexibility here. I could turn up to whichever, I don't know, warehouse developments being built or something like that. And depending on what I wore, they might consider me to be an eccentric genius of some kind at public relations. So I'm sort of going to lean into it. I probably would have preferred one with a roof, if I'm honest. But as I say, this one was closest to the 10 grand. And that's really the only justification I have.
I like it, AJ. I think you made a really nice choice. It is not reliable, but I wonder if you could come across as a reliable kind of guy for buying such a minter. Because look at it; it's in absolutely banging condition, isn't it? It's a really nice example. So maybe somebody would look at it and think, well, he's probably made a decent investment there. He keeps that 10 years; it's going to be worth a fair bit of money.
I'm a man of contradictions, Hunty. They wouldn't. They'll be like They'll they
His
would think we
car's
thought
not reliable, but he might be.
Exactly. We thought we had this guy sussed, and then he turns up in this. Keep him on their toes.
Yeah. I gotta check my grinder matches, see if he's close.
I mean, I jump in. AJ, I love it. Absolutely love it. Because you're right. I think golf, VW, reliability, whether maybe this specific model wasn't, you're right. You've got the general area of competence, right? These are reliable cars, right? I think also that not boring convertible one works. I'm going to let you off the white paint here because I think white's okay on an older car, right? Because that was a bit of a thing, right? Oh, an 80s Golf in white, like John, yours I remember was white, which was fine. It's something about a modern car in white that I'm just not sure about in this country, right? An old, get an old Lotus in white, fine, okay? An old Golf Cabriolet in white, cool, right? That's okay. Yeah, I could see you putting this off, and I think people would be a bit intrigued by it. And I think John's right. If it's a bit of a mincer, you go, oh yeah, I bought this for, maybe there's some lovely reason that you bought it, and I've kept it running, and yeah, I just really enjoy it, and very sensible. I think you're right. I think people would be a bit intrigued by it, but they probably wouldn't read too much into it. They think he's an interesting bloke. There you go.
Yeah, but Sam, I've got to pull you up on the reliability point here. My Golf was a Mark II, and it was 1990 G-Reg, or maybe it was G-Reg, wasn't it? And I mean, that is pretty bloody old. This is a Mark I. This is probably 1985, something like that.
No.
I don't know if you got the listing.
It said it was 92.
92.
I mean, 1 second. Let me just bring up. I've got the listing.
Maybe
here.
they ran the Mark I convertible longer somehow. Maybe it's some run-out thing.
He's got a last of the line. There you go.
90, yeah.
Literal last of the line. Either way, that's 36 years old. Or was it 92? It's 34 years
91
old.
It was, sorry. 91 J-Reg.
This is no longer a reliable car. You can say Golfs are reliable, but this one is 100% not reliable. He is not able to start that car leaving the meeting. He might turn up in it, but he's not able to it.
Is reliable enough to have done 128,000 miles.
But I'd argue,
I'd take it all back.
It's a bit like, it's a bit like me turning up in my car to stuff, right? People are like, "Is this thing reliable?" And of course, I say, "Of course it is." Otherwise, I wouldn't be driving, an older car if I couldn't rely on it. That'd be ridiculous. Obviously, I can't rely on it. It's got an oil leak. I've had a long email discussion today about it, back and forth about what's wrong with it. But I think you could get away with, like you say, it's the meeting, right? It's this first meeting, you arrive on site, it's got to get you there and get you back. If it's not reliable when you get home, that's fine. It's the perception of reliability, right? No one's rocking around in one of these at this point in time if they don't think it's going to get to a meeting or not, right? So you've won whether it conks out on the motorway on the way home and you've got to spend a sleepless night in Newbury services like I've done, right? That's a different problem, okay? It's going to get you there, and it'll get you most of the way home, but it's going to get you through that meeting, and it's going to make people think intriguing. So well done, AJ. I think it's an excellent. And we have not heard from Deaders, though. We've not heard from Deaders.
I could not be more surprised by all of this. Firstly, that I'm going to be the one to be the principal downvoter of a white convertible car. It's normally just been every single week. Here's my offering every single week. I feel like this is only acceptable if the big client is the council manager for a local pond that has a peddlable swans exhibit thing, and then fair enough, maybe this is your guy. But like, as Hunty's saying, this is 31 years old. The engine is going to be shot, or you're pouring money into this little thing, which means you're either incompetent or you're a bit of a weirdo. That roof, the vinyl on the roof, you're going to be replaced. If you haven't replaced it now, it's going to be awful. If you turn up to like a business estate on a grey day, this looks like such a weird choice. Like today in this picture where it's sunny and lovely, south of France, wonderful, great, fine. But even then, like, Sam, you got lucky sleeping in Newbury services on the way back. If you're sleeping in Newbury services on the way up and Swann's PLC are calling you like, AJ, where the hell are you? Then you've lost it. I think this is wonderful for a different brief, but competent, reliable, not reckless. I mean, definitely not boring. But the other three, I'm not seeing it, much as I would purchase this car in a heartbeat for myself. I'm not seeing it.
It's 10 grand, mate. It's available.
Question. Yeah, when halfway through the meeting, your client says, "Nice car, what made you choose it?" And AJ says, "Well, it was as close as possible to 10 grand." It's not going to fly, is it? This has gone wrong. It's all come crumbling down for the Golf Mark 1.
I think it would give the client a valuable insight into who I am, though. That answer.
Slightly metrosexual hairdresser. All right, let's move on. What's next? Dying to see.
I think it's me, actually. I think it's me. So we're going to end with Deaders. Okay. Are we ready? 3, 2, 1.
Please be the Skoda. Okay.
I saw this car. I saw it. And I thought it might make you look like a bit of a twat.
This is a challenge. So,
what is it?
let me describe for the listeners at home. Okay. So I picked a 2009 BMW Alpina. I think it's the first time we've recommended an Alpina on this show. I think this might be a trend going forward. This is a D3, so it's a diesel, 2-litre diesel. This is the Lux spec. Okay, it's a touring, as you can see, 5-door. It was a shade over 10, but having looked at some of the condition of it, I think it's haggling out. So I think you get it for 10. You're driving. So when I looked at this brief, right, thought about this. You're going off onto site, right? You're the kind of person you probably drive a bit, right? Diesel's a good choice for that. Maybe not now with the current petrol prices. It's done just under 100,000 miles, but it's 2009, right? It's old, but it's had relatively low annual mileage, right? These cars are generally looked after. It's an estate. You're coming off as you've got a family, you've got dogs, black and black leather. You've thought about the money side of it. You've picked something a bit rarer, right? You're aware of the financial value of this. However, it's a manual, all right? So it's still some enjoyment. It's an Alpina, right? So there's a bit of interest in there. And, lots of people see different BMWs. Some people will just see a BMW. Other people will look at that little word Alpina. They will see the alloy wheels. They'll look at the back and go, "Ooh, bi-turbo, what's that mean?" Right? There's a level of intrigue there. The manual gives it some enjoyment, right? So you're still going to enjoy driving it. And the people that like cars will know that it's a good drive. This one's standard. It's got no mods, all right? And it's just, I think you turn up and you go, all right, it's not a brand new BMW. It's a bit of a family workhorse. It's something that gets the job done, but you've got a bit of intrigue to you. That's my pitch. Over to Simon Deb.
I think this is a great choice. It ticks all the boxes. Well done. You've read the brief. However, if it's more than 10 grand and you're haggling down, I feel like that breaks the rules and the spirit. AJ turned up at Auto Trader with 10K to his name and got himself a delightful little 1991 Golf. You can't be doing this haggling nonsense. 0 point. Nil point.
Disqualification.
The rules are the rules, mate.
Quick reminder, I think last week you picked a car that you used an advert that you found on Wikipedia that was many decades old and said, that's how I can afford it.
There were many other examples that looked less cool, though, of my one. I did see many that were...
I could have found it. There were others fractionally lower than this. So luckily, I think it's irrelevant.
Okay.
Let me tell you what I think the risk of this one is, Sam.
Go on.
I think a lot of people would see this as a BMW that a boy racer has bought and has put a body kit on it, particularly with the white sticker on the front.
Yeah, that's awful.
9 out of 10 people won't know what Alpina is and how special it is. And so the risk is you turn up with serious money, serious expectations, and the client goes, "Oh no, he's the kind of guy who buys 22-inch alloys for his old BMW."
And on the back of it says, performance, 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 BMW performance.
Yeah. He's got stick-on aerofoils and strakes next to his wheels. He's got 7 spoilers on it, He's got 4 air fresheners.
The good news is, though, I would argue I'm with you, right? More modern Alpinas, there's a real danger for that. Really, all this has got is that that it doesn't have the side stripes. I picked one that didn't have the side stripes. It's just got that word Alpina and it's got the wheels. There's really very little other than the badging on the front. So it's about
there's a front splitter there.
There's a front splitter, but then it's no different to a 330. All right, it does say Alpina though. I'll grant you, but I think that's where the balance is, right? That's where some people will go, I'm not sure about that. Others will go, I'm intrigued enough to ask what that is. But you're right. Probably the balance would fall in there's an argument it would fall in the negative. That some people go, no, that's just some sad losers BMW. Did maybe go into a bit of a hole about, is this actually a good car to go and buy? But Lindsay told me no.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can start getting your wallet out.
Well, I loosened the price of diesel today, and that was the end of that discussion. So no amount of this is really good miles per gallon would resolve that discussion.
Talking about getting your wallet out, I went to buy a car once. I bought a Range Rover, as you know. Do you remember that black Range Rover we had when the kids were born? And Ali and I were in the showroom, and we were about to take it for a test drive, and he wanted my driving license to give it a copy. And I subconsciously got my bank card out instead of my driving license, put it on the desk. And at that point, he knew there was no haggling. I was going to buy that thing. But I'd also clocked a stupid mistake I'd made. So at the minute he wouldn't haggle, I got in the car and left. And it was up near Oxford. And halfway back down the A34, he phoned me and he went, all right, let's have a deal. So I won the day. Yeah. But what a mistake to make. Getting my bank card out in the middle of a discussion about the value of a car. What an idiot.
Clanger. Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah. Anyway, good car, Sam. I think you have responded well to the brief. Yeah.
AJ?
I think, I mean, let's be honest, it does fulfill the brief. I think the only problem is that when they ask you, why did you buy this car? Your answer inevitably has to involve the phrase, and you can fit the golf clubs in the boot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's competent and reliable. What a competent and reliable thing to have done.
Yeah, but
what about the diesel bit? Would that potentially could that be construed as a downside in modern and future economies and fuel markets?
I thought, do you know what? It's a good point. I thought about this. I did look. There was a petrol one available. I thought there was something about the word arrive on site, right? Which made me think I'm driving around a fair amount, right? If I'm going to a site, right, versus maybe an office, right, that suggested that I'm going somewhere that's maybe slightly more rural or suburban, and therefore I'm putting in some serious miles. A diesel's okay for that, and people accept that still, not for maybe much longer.
Fair. No, I think that's right. I mean, one of the points is you're not allowed to be reckless. Well, if you turn up an electric car, you're being very reckless with your own future residuals. Yeah. So maybe this is not a reckless thing to do.
Smart.
Okay, moving on. The last car. Deaders, take us home, baby. What the fuck?
God, look at that. That is one of the worst looking cars I've ever seen. That's second only to Walter White's car, isn't it? And how ugly
it is.
Easy.
It is a white one.
It looks sad.
So this is a 2016 Subaru Crosstrek. A reliable, spacious, go anywhere, do anything. It's a modern version of a Saab. Crucially for the Bay Area, so I've got the US one. Right, so this is US mindset. Crucially for the Bay Area, access to what I call the Subaru line. So something I've noticed every time we go skiing is that above a certain altitude, all of a sudden, all the cars become Saabs. Like everyone above a certain altitude,
Subarus,
not a Subaru.
Subaru,
owns a Subaru because of their reliability, because of their all-wheel drive, because of their handling in the snow, and so from the tick the box point of view. This is the competent, reliable, not reckless, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of the not boring bit, this is your go anywhere, do anything, skiing, snowboarding, off-roading, take the bikes, all that kind of stuff. So this is, the car is solid and I'm reliable. And the car also takes me to do all the cool shit that I do and I'm interested in.
All right, Dennis, I'm gonna accept it, but only if you have two snowboards constantly strapped to the roof and a mountain bike on the back. Then you can get away with the not boring comment.
That's why I included these attachments, which could be had for relatively cheap.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's acceptable, but it's a fucking ugly car. It's one of the
Not
worst I've
beautiful.
seen.
I like the longer
Yeah.
one more, but I couldn't remember what it was called.
Legacy. Or an Outback, I believe.
I think it
Maybe
might be Outback.
Maybe a
Yeah.
Forester.
Sam,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on this choice? Let's have top drawer car enthusiast thoughts.
From a top drawer car enthusiast, it's not bad, is it?
I can see you're annoyed because you actually begrudgingly respect the choice and you're trying to find more reasons to hate it.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
See?
Oh, it is. It's fucking terrible. You know it.
Ticks
Talk
the
us
box.
through the extra additions you've made to the screen. Right, you've added some wheels. You've added some. It looks like a tail bar mounted bike rack. You've made very clear that it's a hybrid. It's a mild hybrid, though, isn't it? Let's not get too excited, right? I would imagine it's not a plug-in.
As in, it's fuel efficient, but with the all-wheel drive, it goes anywhere. Yeah, the photo editions are just all the fun stuff you can add to it with roof racks and bikes and bits and pieces. These are made to be things that you'd flex your non-boringness.
It's okay.
I don't think I'd want to spend any time with someone driving it.
They're driving it. They'd be quite
Well, you're
active, though,
going somewhere
AJ,
cool,
wouldn't they?
AJ. What do you care? You're sitting in the seats, listening to music, off to go skiing, and then
Well, unlike any other car.
No.
yeah.
You can't, your justification, Dennis, can't be it has seats and I can play music in it.
That is essentially a big part of this manifesto, whatever. It's just got to be a reliable car.
Chaps, it's
All right, let's tick the boxes. Okay, you're competent. I'm not sure it shouts competence because you've made a terrible choice. You're reliable. Yeah. Okay. Not reckless. Yeah. These are low bars already. Not
reckless,
boring though. Nobody's ever bought a Subaru recklessly. You're not boring. It's quite boring, isn't it? It's even though because you like as AJ says, you can do any of these things you can do with any car. car.
Not the four-wheel drive thing. Not the four-wheel drive stuff.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, there's
Sam,
a reason, like I say, there is a reason why the Subaru line is a thing up here. Like everyone has them once you get high up enough.
Yeah. Okay, but we're not going skiing.
The echo chamber
we're going to a site meeting, right? And importantly for you,
site meetings around here. So you want to dedicate or demonstrate to people that you go up and do cool shit in your personal time because you're not boring. Not necessarily cool stuff, sliding the car around corners or pretending to be a sports car or whatever, but like you're a cool person yourself.
Right, well, we can kill this now. We're going to kill this vehicle now because I've just noticed something that means that this is a terrible choice, right? You've got those, if you look at the windows, everybody, they've got those little things that allow you to slightly bring your window down, right, without opening the window.
Sick in my mouth.
Yeah, right. The moment I'd see one of those, I'd go, I've never met anyone that has those. Never met a real human that has them. So I've only ever seen them on other people's cars, and I've never crossed paths with one of those people. I can't trust him. It's a bit like people that don't drink tea in the UK. You meet one of them, and you're like, no, absolutely not, right? Like you can get through a meeting and have a cup of tea, right? It's important, right? You've got to be able to drink a cup of tea. Maybe long-term fine. You might, when you get to know someone quite well, you go, just let you know, I'm not a big tea fan. I'm more of a coffee bloke. That's absolutely fine, right? Or maybe even straight up, right? But just saying I don't drink tea, not acceptable. It's the same with this car, right? Those things are not acceptable. They've never been acceptable, right? No. So I would not trust you. Just like I don't trust people that don't drink tea.
Oh, he's lost the deal with Sam being the big money client.
I put those up. I have a theory that the mark of getting old is when you accept what's the right way of putting it? You accept convenience or you accept things you shouldn't normally accept at the cost of aesthetic. So for example, my dad in his old car had a bit of scrunched up kitchen roll in the central console so that because it was a keyless car, so the keys didn't jangle when they were in there when he was driving. And I could never do that. I would never have the bit in there. But he was of an age where he didn't care.
Never say never.
Well, exactly. He didn't care what it looked like. Whereas I would go, no. So
function over form.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing for.
Apologies, there was a slight technical hitch because I clicked the wrong stop button. But conveniently, that leaves us in a very exciting place to move into our next section. Take us away, John.
It's so exciting, isn't it, when we get to this section? I have prepared something quite appropriate this time. We've had the Artemis launch last night, so I'm a little bit tired today. So apologies for that, but that's because we stayed up last night to watch that rocket head off to the moon to go and see what's on the dark side of the moon. And so I thought today's Conspiracy Corner should feature the dark side of the moon. This isn't a did we land on the moon or not conspiracy. That was obviously that was faked. But this is a much more interesting one. Have you guys heard of a guy called Ingo Swann?
I have not.
No.
Here's another name for you, Sam. You could judge this whole thing on the basis of the name Ingo Swann.
I love your little face during this. You're like, so delighted.
Yeah, well, this is a delightful story. It's a really wacky, wild story, but it is true. Or is it? This is something the US government funded for over 20 years. This guy, Ingo Swann, was an artist, a psychic, and for a time, an intelligence asset. In the 1970s, in the height of the Cold War, another Cold War conspiracy, sorry, chaps, it's just when all the crazy stuff happened. Swann was brought into the Stanford Research Institute, and they weren't testing machines, they were testing the human mind. The concept was remote viewing, the ability to perceive places, objects, even events anywhere without being there. Swann would be given coordinates, nothing else, and he would begin to describe what was there through remote viewing. Rooms, structures, landscapes, hidden objects, not vague impressions, but specific details, accurate enough that it caught the attention of the CIA. And this became Project Stargate. Nothing to do with the TV series, I promise. A classified program designed to turn this ability into intelligence. They used it to look at Soviet facilities, underground installations, places they couldn't physically reach. But then they pushed it further. They asked him to look at Jupiter before NASA had any real data. He described a faint ring system, violent atmospheric movement, intense energy fields, all of which were later confirmed after the Pioneer 10 mission. And then came the part that never really gets discussed. Swann was tasked with remote viewing the far side of the moon, the part we never see from Earth. What he described was not empty. He reported structures, not natural formations, structured geometry, tower-like shapes, vertical elements casting shadows. He described large dome-like features, linear arrangements, almost like installations placed with intent. He said there was activity, movement, something that operated there. And then he felt a presence, not something there, but something aware of him. He later said that whatever was on the dark side of the moon noticed him, that it reacted, that it knew he was observing. And the session was terminated. The program continued for years, millions spent, hundreds of sessions. And then in the 1990s, it was shut down. Officially, it didn't work. Unreliable, no intelligence value. But everything you've just heard was funded, tested, and documented. And now we're going back with Artemis 2. Humans are preparing to travel around the moon again. They're on their way as we speak. A crewed mission orbiting the moon, passing directly over the far side. The same place Swann claimed was not empty. For the first time in over 50 years, humans will be back there closer than ever. So here's the question. Is the story of Ingo Swann true or false?
Interesting. Should I
Now,
go
there's a
first?
lot of stuff in there, right? We cannot prove what Ingo Swann says he saw on the other side of the moon, right? But we can prove that what he viewed, remote viewed in Jupiter, was later confirmed by two separate space missions where he had no business knowing what was there already. The stories are that I watched a video today where he could draw what was on a suspended tray above him. There was a camera on the tray, the camera could see him and the objects on the tray, and he drew almost exactly what was on the tray 6 feet above his head by remote viewing. Is the story true?
the
What are we-
story.
I was going to say, what are we determining is true? Because the program, for example, that's men who stare at goats sort of stuff, and I can plausibly believe that happened. Do I believe this man was able to project and remote view? I do not. So is it everything in its entirety, are we saying, is true or false?
So it's just that you've got to tell me whether you think the story is true, right? We can't verify what's on the other side of the moon for a couple of days, but for example, the Jupiter story, the being able to see what's on the other side of a solid metal tray without even looking at it, for him to be able to go and put himself in another position and accurately relay what he was seeing. Is it validated by real facts?
No.
Any more?
Any more words, AJ?
Oh, sorry. No, I don't believe this happened. Sorry, I don't believe he could.
Okay,
I don't
it's a
believe he
false-
could.
It's a false from AJ. Let's go to Sam next, because I have a feeling Dennis has some intel on this. Sam, what are you saying?
I wasn't sure if you were describing the Transformers film at first. Where is this going? And then I got very much into, is there stuff on the dark side of the moon? I watched that film Moonfall. Definitely the worst big budget film I've ever seen. Absolutely.
Such a great movie.
Shockingly bad. Even the kids were like, what is this? And in the lead actor, all of them, he just kept saying mega structures, didn't he, all the time? That was all he kept saying, mega structures on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remote
probably-
viewing. Do you think there's a possibility of remote viewing, an out of body experience where you can, not you, but some people can see elsewhere, can understand through whatever reason what is happening in a different time and space?
Head, obviously bollocks, right? However, I'm wrong consistently on this. I think I've only got one right. So I'm going to have to disagree with AJ. Heart goes, I'm just wrong all the time on this. So I'm going to have to go with maybe this is possible. So
You
sure.
want it to be true.
I don't want it to be true because that might fuck up my entire belief system, I would argue. So, but if it wouldn't surprise me if I was wrong again. So no, I'm going to go. Hart goes, maybe there's something in his weird story. Maybe he did have abilities that they were never able to prove or disprove. Maybe the technology just wasn't there to work out what trick he was pulling. So it was never proven. It was never proven beyond what he said he was able to do. No one ever worked out the conjurer's trick. So that's where I am. Dennis, to you.
Like you, Sam, I've consistently been wrong. And I've been using a tactic of logic, things I think I know, general brain-based stuff to try and work this out. And I'm actually, for this one, going to change my tactic and go to question one, owning physical material, to the 2005 album Let Your Heart Draw the Line by the artist The Remote Viewer.
Hey!
And so simply based on
Simon,
the
can you
existence of
can you hold that up again, just for everyone listening? Simon is holding up a CD.
Called Let Your Heart Draw the Line by The Remote Viewer, which is, I think, just one weirdo making minimal music for the City Centre Offices label in 2004-5, when I was in my minimal phase, and I got loads and loads of albums that all make basically no sound at all, but they're all quite nice. So yeah, based on the existence of this CD and this geezer calling himself The Remote Viewer, I hypothesize that this is a known thing. And if it transpired that the guy, your man, Igor Kalashnikov, or whatever his name was actually a load of old horse shit and made everything up, I'll wear that on the chin. But based on this CD, I'm going for it. So I'm yes.
All right, we've got
As
two
I
yeses
always
and a
am.
no. Yeah, all right, fair enough. Okay, well, let me tell you about him. He's a real guy. And he did somehow guess or remote view what Jupiter was like before the Pioneer 10 mission and subsequent missions, explaining further phenomenon. So Pioneer 10 didn't get everything, all of the details, and people were saying, this guy's rubbish. And then a further probe did produce hazy atmospheres, rings, all this sort of stuff that he was talking about. So he got that bit right. Maybe he guessed it, right? The bit I was talking about, the trays, true. He did manage to draw things that were put on in places that he couldn't possibly have understood what was there. At one point, he was shown a box, and he was asked to draw what was in the box, and he said, "No, sorry, I can't draw anything. It's darkness." And the scientists running the tests said, "Okay, it didn't work. That's fine." He said, "No, you don't understand. I can't see because the light bulb in the box is broken." Guy opens the box, light bulb's broken. There are seriously spooky things about what this guy's seen through his so-called remote viewing that belie all physics, which is really fun. And so we're yet to see what's on the dark side of the moon. I suspect there aren't weird aliens with vertical structures out there, but wouldn't it be fun if there was? It was true.
Great one. Victory for me and Sam and this CD. Thanks, music. I had Spotify.
Thanks,
I
musical
couldn't have
Fred.
shown it.
That was a good one, John. I enjoyed that.
Nice one, mate.
Almost as much. And we move from one space-based section to the sort of moving to a space-based section, because we need to talk about last week's prediction. So, who remembers?
I got this one spectacularly wrong.
You got this one spectacularly wrong?
Yeah, I think I probably was the biggest loser in this case.
The biggest
So the reviews
loser.
from our group who've seen it since then were very positive.
Very
People
positive.
seem to like it.
So, AJ, I don't know if you were in on this one. We asked people at the end of the opening weekend, what percentage score would normal people give to Project Hail Mary? Okay, so the latest film starring Ryan Gosling. Okay, and so we gave it the full weekend. So we gave it the whole of the UK, released in the UK early. Then we gave it the whole of the American weekend, and it was what percentage will it have? And I think dead as your time, it was conveniently 8 o'clock in the morning for me on Monday, so I could get up and take a look. And the answer to the question was 96%.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, is
Well
that
done.
that must be unprecedented, is it?
I was surprised when I had a look at it. Yeah, I was really, really shocked that it was actually that high.
Well, remember that we did say, or someone said last week, there was a hypothesis that some films like this might start really high, as people who've read the books know they want to see it. They go the first week, they like it, great, and then over time, as more randos watch it who are less invested, you get more mediocre scores, diluting it down a bit. So plausible.
Plausible but wrong.
But
So it
I
turns
looked it
out,
up today,
yeah,
and
I
that
looked
has
it up
not
today as well.
happened.
It's not happening at all.
Okay.
It's held.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got so when I looked at it on the Monday, it was at 5,000, just over 5,000 reviews. Okay, it's now at 10,000 reviews. It's still 96%. So Dutter, just to let you know, one of the great things about Dutz is he always seems to have two predictions, and of course every single one he is 100% sure about. He predicted it would be at 90% by now when we next got together. So we will let him off because he wins this week, and by some margin as well. Actually, if you look at it, he's really leapt ahead there. But yeah, his prediction that it would drop very significantly was incorrect. It's also still 95% on the main tomato meter for critic reviews. So
Wow.
fair play. However, now we've got that one done. Let's move on to this episode's prediction. What a beautiful flag. I really was very happy about finding this image. There were not many good images of the Masters, which I thought was a bit unusual. But
You probably have to pay a lot for the good ones.
yes, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So what will be the winning score in relation to par at the 2026 Masters Tournament, concluding on Sunday, April the 12th, which should be before the next episode. Okay. So we're heading into Masters Week. There's no sporting event that makes middle-aged British men feel more falsely confident about their own athletic abilities. And so by that Sunday night, we're going to be sitting there with beers, talking about the exact break of Augusta greens. You know, half of us struggling to navigate a windmill at Crazy Golf. Okay. So to test our undeniable world-class golf expertise, we're heading straight to Georgia. Okay. So some specifics: the closest numerical value wins. So, example, if the winning score is -12, a guess of -10 wins over a guess of -15. If multiple guests guess equidistant numbers, it's a tie. We can have a tie. That's okay. And so it kicks off on Thursday, April 9th, wraps up with the final round, Green Jacket Ceremony Sunday, April 12th. Okay. And the source will be the official tournament leaderboard at the end. Okay. We're going to go first to. So, interestingly, we've got a very clever sports correspondent and somebody that knows a bit about golf. So, why don't we go to neither of them and we'll go to Guile from Street Fighter 2.
11 under.
11 under.
So I did my usual thing of beginning a massive data science research project. And then I stopped and went, you know what? I don't have time. And the margin for error and confidence around actually predicting this seems low. The last couple of years, I think, have been 11 under. It seems to roughly be around there as an average. Unless the field has changed drastically in strength, which I'm not aware that it particularly has. No reason to believe someone's going to absolutely smash it or everyone's going to be shit. Unless the weather is really weird. Ditto. Not aware that the weather's going to be weird. Did no research on that. That could be wrong. So yeah, lazy punt. Dart in the middle of the board. 11 under.
Good work. Okay, we'll take 11 under. That's our number. We're going to anchor off that. Everyone can
That's
make a
your marker.
mistake now from taking it. Let's go to John.
Okay, I was going to go 11 under as well because I've also
Still
done a bit of thinking about it, and it's right in the middle, isn't it? It's right in the middle of what everybody expects. But let me, I'm going to push away from it. I'm going to say it's going to be 12 under. No, and it's fundamentally because of the weather, right? So Augusta plays very differently in different weathers, as proved in 2020 by Dustin Johnson, who won it at 20 under when the ground was a bit softer. It was played it was played a different time of year. I can't remember exactly what it was played. Different time of year because of COVID. And because of that, the course played totally differently. So just having a bit less roll on the green and a bit less compaction, a bit less sort of hard pan grass to play on, he got a much better score, 20 under over the 4 days. So there are outliers. You've got somewhere, one person won it a +1 in 2007. The winner was 1 over, which is but these are outliers, and really, we're not expecting anything crazy this year. Like I said, Augusta is very different in different weathers. So if we get some rain, and there is forecast to be at least one day with slightly sketchy weather, then probably the scores will get better, more under par. But Augusta is famously difficult for incredibly tight fairways, very fast greens. But these guys are getting better every year. They really are. They're driving further. They're more accurate. I watched Scotty Scheffler play a few holes today on YouTube with Rory McIlroy, and the accuracy that these guys have got is unbelievable these days. So I'm going to go because of that confidence, I'm going to go a little bit better. I'm going to say, we might get a bit of dodgy weather, which is going to pull the score, further towards, let's say 12 under. I think it's the best golf tournament in the world and ever. And I'm really looking forward to keeping up with it. 12 under. And I think Scotty's going to win it.
All right.
AJ?
Yeah, I think Scotty too. I think it'll be, I actually had -14 down. Again, saw 11 was sort of the anchor point. I looked at the weather. I think, I don't know, it feels like a high performance year is slightly due. So I think I've gone -14.
Okay.
Done. Where are you at, Sam?
All of the data suggests what you've said, which means I've got to go the other way, don't I? Right? Everything says
Ever
that that's
the
what should
contrarian.
happen. Ever the contrarian. Right? Everything says it's going that way. It's going to be better. It's going to do well. But, I'm sure Tiger thought he was getting better at driving, and it's not worked out that well for him. So, these things happen. So
Nice.
I did read that he's not allowed to drive Trump's kids as well in the news. I don't know if that's true or not. So apparently the Secret Service said, yeah, you can't drive them anywhere. So
do we on the Tiger point? Do we think it's time for him to realise that he's a 50-year-old man and he needs to stop being so weird?
I think it's probably time, isn't it, for him to? But it's issue. I don't know where does he
Start
go
behaving
from.
yourself, man. Yeah.
Maybe he could, I don't know, feature in like an Adam Sandler film. Maybe that's his place. That's where he needs to be. I agree. I just think maybe he needs to. But you worry about him, don't you? Right? You worry that if he loses the golf side of his life, where does he go? Because it's very clear he's got a very disruptive element to him. And is that maybe the only thing?
I imagine there's about 100 million things he could do.
There might be 100 million things he could do.
He could go and retire on a yacht. It'd be great. He could be the world's best golf pundit, by the way. He'd be brilliant at that.
I imagine he'd be great at all these things. But I think this is it, isn't it? The drive that they've got. The drive that got them there in the first place hasn't gone away. And so many sports people just struggle to adapt to that world. And it feels like he struggled to adapt to the world while he was in it, whereas others have been more rational, more balanced. So I know I'm worried about the poor guy. So I know he's not been the world's best human. So
why does his drive for amazing success end with rolling a Range Rover on a straight road? There's something else happening there, isn't there?
No,
it's not the drive that's doing it.
No, but I think my worry is when he loses. You said, is it time for him to step back? Has he got the support network, the systems that he needs to actually manage that? It seems reasonably clear that he does not. So does he need to get into a better place where he can go, I've kind of sorted myself out now and I'm still playing golf and it's okay. So when I step away, that's kind of going to work. Feels like he's not in a good place, maybe stepping away from golf now, whereas that's still a thing that he can hang his hat on. He's still good, right? He's still not a bad golfer, right? At his age, he's not fine. He's not up with Scotty, but he's certainly still a reasonable golfer. He can still get around. There's still opportunities for him to do things. So, and that's the great thing about golf, isn't it? You can keep playing. I know his body is in a very drastic place now for all kinds of different reasons over time. But I feel like if you took golf away from him, that would maybe be a bad thing at this point. Obviously, none of us are. This is not our area of expertise, but that's my gut feel at the moment. He's not ready to step back from golf. He
maybe the move is to get him out of the toxic environment he's in. I'm aware that he and loads of others live near Jupiter, Florida, and are presumably, like so many folks famous in America, surrounded by sycophants, yes men, etc. Infinite money, obviously. Maybe the move is to just ship himself up to somewhere in Scotland and just play links courses with a bunch of grouchy lads who will take the piss out of him all day, go to a wet pub and have a pint of best after the day, and just have a really normal, boring life for a couple of years, and then come back.
Yeah,
and get someone else to drive you around.
Yeah, yes. you can probably afford it. Yeah. But I think you're right, Dennis. Maybe get him into, like you said, get him into a pub and make him realize that he's maybe not an alcoholic. He's actually quite reasonable, right? Not have everyone psychoanalyze him and say you've got all these issues around things. Go, actually, it's all right to have a beer. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So,
maybe. Anyway,
taking all that into account, I'm going to go with -8. I think it's going to be an unusual year.
Okay.
So, there we go. Happy to be.
Have you got a prediction on who, Sam, or not?
No, I don't follow golf enough. I really don't. Right. And even having just watched, the latest Happy Gilmore, I still was struggling to work out who some of those people were. So I'd love to say I follow golf. I don't. I won't stay up late to watch it. I probably should, but I didn't even stay up late to watch the launch last night. So I'm a very boring human being. Don't like staying up late now because I like getting to the gym in the morning. So yeah, I won't stay up late to watch it. I know I won't already now. Maybe if you lot all convince me that it's worth staying up for. Don't get me wrong. I love a sporting event where there's some jeopardy, and as we all know, anything that involves heartbreak, I'm interested in. But yeah, I'm not that bothered. I should be more bothered about golf. I haven't played. Do you know what? I've only played one round of golf since Dan was born.
Yeah. It's
One
tough
round.
to play golf when there's kids around. So then the
Yeah.
kids have to play golf and then you can start playing again.
Yeah, we talked about it. I've talked to the boys about it, whether we should get back into it. I've got a lot of local people around here play, and I do wonder. And I was all right at golf. I wasn't bad. I would say when we all played, I was middle to top of the pack. I can hit a ball. Like I'm all right at putting, but it just feels like it takes a lot of time. And
It
at the
does take up
moment,
a lot of time.
yeah,
I'm
And
not
it's-
surprised at all, though, Sam, to hear that you rate yourself slightly above average.
I was good. Should I tell you? Actually, did you know what? There's two things we missed actually because of me cocking up with the cars. There was the story. The two. Have we got time? We got probably don't.
Well, Sam, before you do you want to get rid of the image? Since
Yeah, I'll get rid of the image.
not
I'll
doing
get rid of the image. And I'm going to definitely click the
try
right
not
stop
to
button
log
there.
us out. Yeah.
We good? There we go. So talking about golf, the one round we played, some of the local dads around here organised it, and we went to Silvermere, I recall. And I hadn't played. The last time I played actually was when we all played in La Manga. Actually, that was the last round. The last round I played was La Manga. Then I played this round at Silvermere over a decade later, and I was the fourth in the four ball. Everyone went, drove off the first tee. I had the driver that you bought me in La Manga, the Nike driver that I'd only ever used in La Manga, and the first thing I did was hit a drive dead straight 200 yards. Like I've never hit a better drive in my life, and we were playing for money. And I turned around and I was like, "Come on, let's up the stakes." And I've never finished last so badly. Like that was it. That was the only good shot I played all day.
Tough at Silvermere as well because the 18th, as I remember, is a 4 with an island green.
Yeah,
a little
it's
chip
really,
over to an island green, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I had to take a mulligan on
tough.
that. It was that bad. I think I took 12. just gave over. Anyway,
that's not in the rules.
Not in the rules. So, let's move on. Final round for this week is music. Over to you, Jonathan.
Yes, I've been thinking about our the world's militaries and what they're doing at the moment in various parts of the world. So I've created a question around it. Here we go. You're a serving member of the Royal Air Force. You've just been told you're being deployed. You're part of a joint operation launching from the Royal Navy's flagship HMS Queen Elizabeth. The briefing is short and direct. You're heading into hostile territory, a high-risk mission to secure critical oil infrastructure. It's night. You step out onto the flight deck. Heat, noise, wind, everything moving. Ahead of you, the helicopter's waiting. A Boeing CH-47 Chinook, rotors already turning. You climb aboard, harness on, the crew nod, the ramp begins to close and the engines build. You lift off into the darkness and the carrier lights disappear behind you. There's a moment just before everything begins. What do you put on the Chinook's stereo? By the way, I love the idea that the Chinook might have a stereo and maybe a sub in the boot and some lights. Like, yeah.
Small Bluetooth speaker, you just can't hear it at all. Turn it up.
So
That's a great question.
Maybe they do.
Should we find out? I'll tell you what. I'm going to add that to the list. I want to ask. I know a man who knows. Do you remember Mark Warner? Warner will know.
Yeah, I bet he'll know.
Well, I'll text Warner and say, do Chinooks have a stereo? It's very important for us to know that.
If so, how good are they? Yeah.
How good is it?
So
yeah.
Let's
would it just come through the cans, though? Presume they've all got headphones on.
These are great questions.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I assume they don't have a stereo, but let's say for the purpose of the question, there is a stereo in the Chinook and you're in control. Deaders, what do you put on?
From 1997's stunning, brutal, violent, beautiful post-rock juggernaut that started their career, across 12 minutes, this magnum opus alternates between tense, nervy, brooding malice and all-out sonic assault, the soundtrack to bombs falling, to destruction, to devastation. This is no feel-good 80s danger zone schlock. You're off to war, not to enjoy some homoerotic volleyball montage. You're the archangel of death, the bringer of doom, he of the nightmares. Steel your soul for the horrors you may face and inflict while you bathe in this roiling, seething Armageddon of sonic brilliance. It's Mogwai like heroin. There you go.
Mogwai?
If you haven't heard Mogwai, you've missed out.
I fucking have heard Mogwai. Sorry, I'm very surprised.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing fucking Ash and Blur. Like, you're about to go to war. You want something that is the sound of war. Mogwai is the sound of Armageddon.
We met someone from Mogwai in Berlin.
Really?
Yeah, I
Were
did.
they Scottish?
Yeah, I met someone from Mogwai in Berlin. Sorry, continue talking. I'm gonna. Yeah, 100%
All right.
met
Well,
someone
look,
from Mogwai.
that is a wild roller
Wow,
coaster we've just been on. It was
Come
sort of
back,
a level
Berlin is
roller
Berlin.
coaster for a while, wasn't it? And then straight down. AJ, what are you going to put on the Chinook stereo?
I am going to copy in its entirety Marianne Faithfull's response when she was on Desert Island Discs, and they were just talking about the end of the 60s. And Kirsty asked her, she said, "So Marianne, with all that in mind..."
She said, what do you put on the Chinook stereo when you go on your tour?
Said, with all that in mind, and they just talked through her being, caught by the police and the Mars bar rumours and the drug taking and the sort of death of the swinging 60s. She said, "Marianne, what is your next track?" And there was a bit of silence. Marianne did this. She went, "Gimme Shelter" by the Rolling Stones. And that is what I would have on the Chinook.
Solid.
Yeah,
Solid.
it's such a winner,
That's
isn't
good.
it? It's such a winner. It feels like there's a lot of that sort of music from the Vietnam War, which as we
best
all know,
soundtrack. The Gervais line,
had the
best soundtrack.
for any war,
Yeah.
didn't it? Yeah, a bit of like Credence and Fortunate Son and things like that.
Yeah.
What an amazing what an amazing time for music. And it sort of, I don't know, in some way it glorified war, didn't it? And that is, I felt like that's where I started. I was like, we should have some Go Get 'em song, which kind of really gets you fired up. But I went in a totally different direction after doing that because I felt really horrible about picking the Vietnam War stuff. I don't mean to cast aspersions on your choice, AJ. It's a phenomenal song, but I was like, actually, I don't want to celebrate it. So I chose "Mad World" by Tears for Fears, but particularly the version that's on the Donnie Darko soundtrack, which is done by Gary Jules. Which was UK Christmas #1 in 2003. But
it was, I remember.
It would feel like a very different sort of mood on that Chinook. I don't want to be there. I don't want to drop bombs on anybody. I don't want to blow anything up. I don't want any part of this madness that's happening at the moment. Anyway, there we go. Mad World. That's mine.
But you're strapped in. Like you're getting paid for this. You're an Air Force member. Would that not be counterproductive to your?
Feels counterproductive.
Yeah. I'm still sad about it. It's like, I liken myself in that case to the weird blue lady on Pandora in Avatar. She kills some things and Jake Sully's like, wow, that was cool. She's like, no, this is sad. And that's where I would be if I was on that Chinook.
Okay, I like this.
Like Jiminy Cricket on the soldier's shoulders. Their conscience. Guys,
talking around the Chinook. Guys, you realize this is a horrible thing that we're doing here? We're about to kill people. Ugh.
At least cry while you're doing it.
Yeah. At least look sad. God, why are you playing Fortunate Son? Come on.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think that's really interesting. Particularly because, look, we made this podcast to talk about the end, didn't we? Right, and for a lot of people who go and do this, I'm really sad that when we were just talking about that, and I thought about Mark Warrener. We should ask Warrener, right? He was in the army and particularly looked after helicopters. The sad thing it made me think about was Steve Maben, who I don't know, some of you remember reasonably well. Dead as I know, in particular, Scuba Steve, right? It made me think about what would Steve have listened to. And so, just for the listeners at home, Steve was a very good friend of ours from university. He was in the army, and I won't get into details, but he died a few years back, which is very sad. And I wonder and he did some crazy stuff. I remember going to visit him at the a number of bases and talked about what he did. I wonder, John, just made me think about that. Like, what were they? What kind of stuff did they listen to? Like, particularly, he was in Iraq and he was in Afghanistan. Like, what were they listening to then when he was out doing things? I certainly remember him calling us from a plane in Libya that then he had to stop the call because they were taking fire. I remember that phone call very well.
Jesus.
So, yeah, he was on a satellite phone and he was calling because we'd been texting him to say, like, are you coming to this thing? But we didn't know he'd gone to Libya, basically. So he'd managed to rustle up a satellite phone and he called me to say, he's like, I did see your messages, by the way, but yeah, I can't come because I'm like away. And we were like, oh, okay. And then there was this very loud, like, bang, 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 because obviously the plane he was in was being shot at. He was like, I'll call you back like later. And then he didn't for ages. And we didn't hear from him for a long time. And then when we eventually got back, he admitted to us that he was like landing an airstrip in Libya, doing something nefarious, and their plane was getting shot at. And he probably, in hindsight, shouldn't have called. So, but it made me think that was interesting. You talked about Vietnam as well. I don't really feel there's much music associated with the Falklands. Is that fair? Like nothing immediately spread to mind.
It was only a couple of days, wasn't it? It's not enough to have a soundtrack.
No, but like I do wonder about that.
Come out at that time. What was
AJ? You were. I was going to say you're a musical man. Like what was going on in 82?
New Order.
Yeah, I was born that year. So, they must have listened to stuff, didn't they? You're a Harrier jump jet pilot. You must have listened to something as you took off.
A few of them would have had Walkmans, but not many would have had them.
No,
I imagine as they were all on boats, they were there on the bow of the boat with an egg catapult playing Ride of the Valkyries.
No, I tell you what, I will find out. So my cousin was in the Navy. He was in the Falklands. He was on one of the ships. I will ask him. Say, what were you listening to? Let's add that to the notes. What were you listening to in the Falklands? I'm sure they had something on.
Right. It was probably the World Service.
Let's reconvene.
Shipbuilding by Robert Wyatt, written by Elvis Costello, was released and became notable at the time.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
We should all go and find out what military vehicles have stereos and what if
music.
So, I'm seeing a mate of mine just after I go back from Japan who was a tank commander. So I'll ask him if he had a stereo in his tank.
In his tank. I hope he did.
Yeah,
I
let's
really
find out.
Like an old Alpine.
Back.
Like an Alpine one with like a folding bit. They had to take it out whenever they got out of the tank.
Yeah. We forgot the faceplate.
We forgot the faceplate. Shit.
Sam, we haven't heard your music choice yet. Let's go.
So I will confess, right? I came to this evening slightly later than I planned, and I was a little bit behind on this. And I'd mulled it a little bit, but I hadn't come to a definitive answer. However, when we were all chatting earlier and I was putting it together, there was something that I thought was really interesting. There's a moment just before everything begins. And that reminded me of a scene from a film where, and I think I was probably more in the AJ and Deaders camp, right? You started with, let's go with Top Gun that was my anchor point. I was like, right, it's not Top Gun. I thought about a bit of AC/DC and I was like, it's probably a bit obvious, isn't it? But there's probably some great stuff in there. I was like, what do I really like that's around that? And then I saw that just before everything begins. And I thought back to the end of the first Matrix film. And I thought about Rage Against the Machine and Wake Up. And I thought that would be excellent once all the lights have gone off. It's got such a brilliant beginning, doesn't it? So, and I think I would definitely go with Dead as AJ and I. My gut feel would be if we talk to anyone in the military, that they're much more likely to listen to something like that than they are to Donnie Darko, Dark World and going, I'm going to feel a bit bad about what I'm going to do. They're probably trying to hype themselves up for doing things they don't want to do.
That is why I'm not in the military.
Yeah.
Was your go-to? Well, obviously, I thought of the Christmas number ones first of all, and I decided.
Brilliant.
Good.
Well, listen, this has been another. I have to admit, when we started this podcast, before we came on, we all said there's only 4 of us. We're probably not going to run over time. We'll be fine. This is probably the longest one we've ever done unintentionally.
Always run over.
Always run over. I think we've been having a lot of fun. Listen, brilliant as always. We're going to end it there. We'll do some waving because that allows me to piss around with some animations. AJ's already checking something else on his screen. So we will see you all soon. We've got 3 already booked in, and we've got some exciting ones coming. We've got a West Coast of the United States and Canada coming. We've got a new special guest. So Deaders will be there, but we've got a Canadian guest. Can't wait for that.
I'm not exciting. I don't count.
You're not exciting anymore. You've been on this enough. And we've also got a Pacific episode coming soon with our friends Max and Rob, which we're very excited about because we've spent a lot of time faffing around with time zones to make that work and finally found the date that we can all do. So we'll see you all soon. Ta-ra for now.
Bye.
Bye.